right, it's a good start. It says live. We'll see what happens here. In the meantime, I can pour my drink. Anyone got any of this for the show today? I do. And at the moment, I'm not wearing a microphone, so you'll have to tell me if we need to start wearing one. Last week was kind of a debacle. It was a mistake. I figured it out. But I really hate those mistakes. So we have one person here. Naz really wants to know something. Mr. Reef Buster. Okay, I know there's a lot of background sound because I'm pouring a drink. Hang on a second. Welcome to the ASMR Milo's Reef channel. So you're probably wondering about this angle. I wanted to make sure I had everyone here for the shock value because you're going to be shocked. I'm just giving you, I'm letting you ease into this so it doesn't hurt because it's going to hurt. And I'm expecting a lot of hate and a lot of thumbs downs. And there's nothing that you or I could do anything about that. This had to happen. So whatever anger you have, don't hurt the sheetrock in your home. Don't kick your dog. Don't yell at your wife. It's going to be okay, all right? To be honest, I'm actually handling this better than the guy next to me you can't see. He's actually way more stressed about my tank than I am because I went in with the attitude, I'm going to hate this. So we're going to hate this together. I don't need you to be riled up. So how are we on sound? Are we okay? I need to know that. I want to wait a little bit. Okay, one person said sound is fine. When Dwayne's talking, please also put in the chat if he sounds okay because he's a little further away from the computer. We're using the one built in. I know the tank is bubbling in the background. I need to know if that's a whole factor. If I have to bust out all the mics and kind of get us wired differently, please communicate and let me know. And I'll do my best to really look at the chat and not ignore it like I do so often. What we're going to do today is we're going to start off with a disaster that Dwayne went through a few weeks ago with his own tank that he was able to circumvent magically. So that's really good. And then we're going to get into what's going on behind me. This is not clickbait. I'm literally preparing you for the worst so you don't lose your minds. Because as soon as you have it on camera, you're like, oh no. Give it time. It's going to be all right in 6 to 9 months, okay? But right now it looks a lot different. And that's what I told you guys last week. I said, get a good hard look because next week it will not look anything like this. And I didn't lie. I actually warned you guys. So we have 74 victims here that are willing to engage in what's going on. And all right. Okay, everyone's saying sound is excellent. Can't hear the tank. Oh, I like that. That's nice. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, here we go. Just going to do this. First, let me take a sip of this. I actually feel like I have an upper respiratory thing happening with our heat and humidity and everything, and then working around a reef tank. Who knows? I have no idea. But hoping the crown will kill it. All right, here we go. I almost want to make them wait another minute just to protect them.
I'm just grinning in the background because of Mark's story here so far.
You know, a lot of times they're like, oh, these guys are being for drama. I was like, no, there's no drama. This is, okay, I'm just doing it. I'm ripping off the Band-Aid. Here we go. All right.
Let me step away.
We'll step out of the way a little bit. So this is the new work in progress. We did not finish. We worked until 3 in the morning on this tank, I believe.
Yep.
And that's when we called it quits for the night. We have more to do this afternoon. But this is where we are. A lot of huge colonies came out, and I saved small pieces. And there's even a moment, we'll get into all the details, but there was even a moment before we started working on the tank where I told Dwayne, I want that little piece of Milka. And he was so proud of me. He's like, wait, what just happened? Because I always want to save every polyp. And I found this little nub at the top that had like this really pretty branching out, and then everything was just a monster piece. I said, I want that all gone. I want that piece. And he was really just, he didn't even know what to do with that information because that's not Mark. There's no way.
Well, last night, I think on 3 occasions, I've gone, I am so proud of you, Mark. I am shocked of what you are doing on the backside because we both worked on opposite sides of the tank. I worked the front, he worked the back, and I'd come around the back, and instead of you saving 1-inch and half-inch snippets of life, you were actually throwing it away, which I know is very hard for you.
There was at least 3 buckets of dead skeleton or dying skeleton. There's some dying too, but it was just stuff that didn't look healthy. It just didn't look good. And so that was all taken out. We planted some new frags that he brought with him. But let's talk about your story first. So how's Dwayne sounding? Is he sounding okay? Does he have to get closer? What do you guys think?
Yeah,
we have to wait
can you
20
guys hear
seconds.
me?
And do you want a drink too?
I'm good.
You don't want any soda?
I have my water.
Oh, water, you're so healthy. So this is Crown and Coke. It's got Emila's Reef logo on the front that you can almost make out. Oh, you can actually see it a little bit. It didn't really want to focus. Anyway.
We're still waiting to hear feedback if you guys can hear me before we move on.
Yeah. Who's buying the frags? Okay, one person says sounds good.
Right.
So 4 weeks ago?
I think it was 3 weeks ago. I was getting ready to go out of town, had a lot on my mind, was very busy at work, and my wife called me at about 1 in the afternoon and said the audible alarm on my Apex, I have the old display on the wall, it was going off and driving her nuts.
It plays this horrible little music. It does. I hate it.
Yeah.
But that's your alarm.
So being busy at work, I opened up my phone app and looked at it and saw that it was the ATO1 timer, which is a float switch. I don't have the Neptune ATK kit. I have an old-fashioned do-it-yourself float switch, and I just assumed one of the float switches was stuck. So being in a hurry and not wanting to hear it for the next 3 hours at work, I turned it off. I turned off the email alarms and made my wife happy, went back to work and disregarded it.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. I sound just like Terrence. Let me stop you.
Yep.
I don't want to explain things, but I need to explain. If you don't have an Apex, the alarm system works one way. It has to be on. So if anything goes wrong with your tank, any of 96 different things that go wrong, if you turn off the alarm because of one thing, the other 96 things can't tell you. It just literally is silent. So, all right, now they know you can keep going.
So I continued my day at work. Didn't even think about the fish tank. Like I say, I was getting ready to go camping and went to the grocery store after work, made my potato salad, made dinner, and about that time my wife
made dinner at home.
I made dinner at
home.
home.
So you came home.
Came home,
still
went
didn't
to
look
the
at
grocery
it.
store, spent several more hours. So by that time, 5 hours, 6 hours had gone by. And at that time, my wife came upstairs and said, "Your fish tank is flooding out onto the back patio." And then I knew it was real. Uh-oh, what do you do?
And why was I given an alarm?
Yeah, that's my own doing. I completely forgot about it. I turned those alarms off, and just my tank is 500 gallons. It's a big system. I assume it's pretty bulletproof. I spent a lot of time working on it, so systems are pretty stable. Went downstairs, and my refugium had flooded, and it was pouring water onto my 2 external return pumps. Water everywhere. Of course. Oh, yeah. So immediately I'm panicking that these return pumps are going to blow up and or electrocute me at any given second.
Yeah.
Then I went into panic mode. Try to do a quick 50-gallon top-off. I keep 55 gallons of water.
Of RO or salt?
Of salt water.
Okay, so you're trying to replace what you lost.
So I'm trying to replace what I did. Like an idiot in my panic, I opened the wrong valve. I poured more water into the sewer because mine's built into the house.
Oh.
I opened the wrong valve and dumped even more water out.
The water you needed.
The water I needed. Went straight, brand new salt water, straight to the city sewer. Now I'm in trouble at this point. There was going to be a quick, 30-gallon top off for this.
Now this is a fish-only tank with like 3 little clownfish?
No, this is my 500-gallon elaborate system comprised of 5 or 6 fish tanks.
But all SPS corals.
It's
very picky corals.
It's a grow system. I'm a wholesaler for a couple of the local areas.
And a beautiful
Seattle
reef tank in your home.
Yeah, large display tank.
Okay,
and
so
lots of grow tanks.
everything's at risk now.
Like at that point, all I could do was take. Fortunately, I don't have an RO. I use DI, so I can make fresh RO or DI water very quickly, but I can't make 55 gallons in a matter of 5 minutes.
Right.
So I bided my time. I started adding RO straight to the tank because the pumps are cavitating. At this point, I'm not even getting water into any of the tanks. The pumps are cavitating. They're just blowing micro bubbles. because the sump is that empty.
Yeah.
And since I'm adding RO, I am then forced to pour salt directly into my sump.
Yeah, that's when I was like, what? He's like, I'm literally scooping salt into my sump. I'm just adding cup after cup after cup.
So yeah,
and waiting for it to melt magically.
Salt is going into the overflow chamber, the skimmer chamber of the sump, and it's just a slurry brine filtering through one of my grow tanks, actually, which is fortunately more zoanthids and softies. But watching this, knowing it's 40 ppt or 102 or 103 at that point, because my salinity was so low, the poor little yellow tang is actually giving me dirty looks.
What are you doing?
The tang that usually hides from me is up on near the surface, looking at me, going, "Maybe you should net me out of here." So, feel bad. I'm in a panic. I'm doing all I can do to rescue my tank. My wife is wanting to plan a vacation, and I'm trying to be polite, telling her this is a catastrophic. This is probably the worst thing that's happened to me in 10 years. I could lose everything in a matter of minutes, or wake up tomorrow morning and it's going to be dead.
Yeah.
So long story short, ultimately I was able to get it topped back off. I ended up pouring.
How did you know how much salt to use in that scenario?
I just kept adding and wait 5 minutes. I just poured a quarter bag in, wait 5 minutes, poured another quarter bag in, wait 5 minutes.
And you kept measuring. Oh, you were watching the probe.
Watching the probe. I have the
salinity probe.
I have a salinity probe in my Apex. I have a refractometer, and I have a digital pen. So I'm using all three of those because at this point I'm not going to trust anything. I can't trust myself making mistakes like that. Yeah. So over the course of 2 hours, I was able to get about 50 gallons of RO in, but it had leaked so much, I put two 55-gallon mixed bags of salt directly into my sump.
110 gallons worth of salt.
So ultimately, I had lost about 100 gallons of water out of a 500-gallon system over the course of 5 or 6 hours.
Because the alarm was turned off.
Because I turned off the alarm and ignored it.
And the reason I found out about the story is because he did a huge write-up and didn't even call me. He just did this write-up and put it in the Apex group because he's like, you guys, you need to know when the Apex helps. It's not just to complain about something not working. This group is also to let you know how it works and what you should be doing. And
yeah, Mark says, I can't believe you didn't call me. I says, I am emotionally exhausted. All I have in me is to just sit down and type. I'm just checked out at this point. So stories like that are definitely worth sharing with friends, especially reefing friends, when a lot of people don't, a lot of your users probably don't know it, is that we bounce ideas off of each other regularly.
Right.
Being successful isn't something that we can do alone, that's for sure. So.
Yeah. No, anyway. So, what the takeaway from this? It's so important. I know some of you have Apexes. I know some of you don't. But those of you who do, the rule is don't turn off your alarm. Like physically set it to off. I understand it went off. You want it to stop. I want it to stop. I actually want like a snooze button. I want to create some kind of a virtual outlet, which I don't know how to do, that will snooze it for 90 minutes, just so I can make it stop chiming, make it stop emailing, make it stop texting me, but come back at me in 90 minutes if it's still a problem. That's what I'd like.
We can do that, and there are workarounds to make it not give you that hourly notification. But in my experience, my system is elaborate, and my fish tank, because of my Apex, has over 60 reasons why I can receive an alert. And when it's alerting me every hour, instead of turning it off, correct the issue or change the set points.
Right.
Turning it off is the worst solution to dealing with all of these alarms.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I had that exact situation where somebody says, just turn off such and such, and that way you won't get these alarms. Because it happened at 2 a.m. Friday morning, and I was at Macna for the next 3 days, and I was getting hourly texts and emails from the Apex. And it was 9 a.m. I was like, oh my God, I still have 3 days to go. This is never going to stop. I have to do something. And this one guy says, just turn that thing off. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And it wasn't the alarm. It was like he told me to turn off a float switch or turn off something that was related to my protein skimmer, which was actually the safety net. Basically what it was saying was my waste collector was full to the top, which should make my skimmer stop. But now I'm getting a text saying your skimmer isn't on. And that was telling me every single hour on the hour until whenever my tank sitter would get here. And I thought it could be another 12 hours. This is never going to end.
Yeah.
And so somebody says, turn off that switch. But that all they did was turn on the skimmer, which then overflowed even more and started flooding my fish room. And I came home 3 days later to a very wet room with a lot. I spent 2 hours just cleaning before I even picked up my suitcase and walked into the house. I was so frustrated. So anyway, you're right. We want something. And the thing is, with any alarm, okay, let's take this for example, guys. You're cooking, okay? Everyone cooks in their house. Everyone has a smoke detector. And you accidentally burn the bacon or something, and the smoke detector is going off. You want that noise to stop. You already know there's a problem, right? But it wants to keep going and going because there's still smoke. That's kind of what the Apex will do.
Yep.
And there's a button on the display module that will stop it for maybe 10 seconds, and then the music resumes.
Yeah.
And you're like, but I already fixed it, and the music keeps playing because it's like it's going to take a minute or two to finally notice you fixed it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, I want to be able to hit the button and it's done, unless there's a problem an hour from now, and it's like, hey, it's still a problem.
No, we can do that.
Anyway,
We can do that.
I wanted to share that with you. I'd shared with you my story of my tank overflowing, and that was the day I was going to bring Dwayne on, and he was actually at a frac show, and he's like, I can't come on the stream right now. I'm actually buying corals. And I was like, oh. So I thought that was a worthwhile story because it started with a normal day, and you're at work, and you got your notification, and your wife called you, so you're aware of it.
Yeah.
And yet it still got away from you 6 hours later.
And that's the putting that snooze button allows you to forget it. That's why I say with the hourly messages from Fusion, it keeps it on the forethought. So when I get home, typically it's the first thing I deal with.
Right.
I didn't
because it was turned off. It wasn't reminding you.
Yeah. And I guess having said that, is since I've been here, my Apex has been emailing me daily
a lot
because I'm having skimmer problems. I took an hour yesterday with the video camera, walked through with my son. My son had to break my skimmer down, and my Clarisy filter suck and overflows, and I walked him through that yesterday to deal with fish tank issues.
Right.
Because my controller told me I was having problems.
You know, guys, that's another thing. That was actually pretty interesting. So he was on his computer looking at had the Apex control panel, and he had his iPhone sitting there in the laptop where he was doing a live cam in his fish room over his son's shoulder as his son is working, like a surgeon, right? He's doing the surgery, and you're observing like the director of surgery.
Yep.
And he was telling him, I need you to do this. Okay, I need you to take that. Don't let that squirt you in the face. I'm going to turn it on now. Okay, I'm turning it off. Oh, I turned on the wrong thing. Let me turn on the right thing. And he was trying to, and he actually, I believe, solved it.
Yes.
It took a while. I mean, it took an hour or longer. But you guys fixed it, and now supposedly his tank will be fine until he gets home tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So he still has another day here. And you know, the problem was that because it kept surging and going, it was using a lot of power. It was probably going to burn up the pump because something was really wrong. And it was dumping water again into a waste collector.
Yep.
Which gets you notifications because it's full. And you're telling your son, can you empty it again? And then like 2 hours later, can you empty it again? And then 2 hours later, can you empty it again? And you're like, what is happening? This never happens.
And once again, I'm having low salinity.
Yes. Grab a bag of salt and pour it in this. Oh, my God, guys. I would never recommend that. Only Dwayne can do that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I guess it makes sense because it goes in the sump, then it goes into a frag tank, then it drains down, and I guess eventually gets to the reef?
It does. It's a 6 foot, 150 gallon sump. So I have that 6 gallons of mixing. Then it goes into, half of it goes to the display tank, the other half is manifolded into a large 90 and then a cascading 40, 30, 20 system. Yeah. But when I do that, it stresses my bubble tips out.
Oh,
they start splitting, So
it can stress fish.
It's not.
You have salt crystals blowing through the tank, stinging everything.
Tank. It's an emergency situation.
Which
I don't recommend it to anybody.
I just know some people do that, or when they start a new tank, they fill it up with RODI water and they start pouring in salt. I'm like, I would never do that. Yeah. I mix it, I measure it, and I pump it in. I've always done that. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm the only guy that only does it that way, but I prefer to mix in a barrel and then move it in.
Okay. I leave mine set up for a couple weeks. I typically have 55 gallons on hand. And it's such a small water change. Like I said, I don't buffer my alkalinity.
Right.
I do a quick, 10% water change every 2 weeks. Yeah. And it keeps up. But yeah, pouring salt into your sump
that's crazy.
is a I'm gonna lose everything if I don't do something in this minute scenario.
Yeah.
And in a smaller tank, a 30-gallon cube, 55,
Right.
You should be mixing it in a bucket.
Yeah, guys. I don't, it depends on your tank
Definitely,
size
yeah.
and what livestock you have. If you have
Yeah.
one fish and a bunch of rock, it's like, all right, you might be able to get away with something.
Yeah.
But when you have sensitive corals, and see, here's the miracle. He went through all of that, and his SPS Reef literally didn't blink. Did you lose any corals?
No.
Nothing.
No.
Didn't lose color.
No.
Nothing RTN. Nothing
No.
brown jelly. Nothing.
No. Well.
Wow. That's really great.
Yeah.
I mean, considering what happened, I was thinking the worst, and I'm so glad you were able to catch it. Okay, we got some other business. Let's move on. First of all, last Saturday night, late at night, I turned on membership on this channel, which is the join button. And if you're on an Apple device, you can't see the join button, which is unbelievable to me. I mean, I'm just like, that's half the planet. That's insane.
Yeah.
I did some homework. And it seems, well, it doesn't even matter. To get to the join button, you either go to youtube.com/Mailer'sReef/join. Pretty simple. Or if you're on Android or PC, you can see it. Also, if you use a browser on your iOS device like Safari or you load Chrome or whatever you use and visit YouTube and visit this channel, you'll see the join button. But in the YouTube app, it doesn't appear for iOS because Apple wanted like a third of the money and YouTube said no. So, and I was surprised that wasn't documented because I'm creating a video explaining membership, and I would have mentioned that. And it wasn't even like, you should let your consumers know. So the point of the membership was to, pay $5 a month or $8 or $10 a month to become fans of the channel. It's completely your choice. You are not, the regular user will continue to get what they've always gotten. This is like bonus. So for example, last night, it took a little doing, but I got 2 different live streams out last night that went to members only. And that let them actually watch the breakdown of the tank in real time and listen to us banter and argue and all the things you do when you're working on a tank for 10 hours together. So if you're not a member and you want to join, you can. And probably once you're a member, you could actually watch those streams. It's not something fantastic. I don't want to mislead you into thinking, oh my God, I'm going to see all this stuff. We set up the camera over there to shoot from a side so you're not looking at our butts. And then we took my other camera and pointed at the tank with time-lapse, which I will turn into a video. But if you're wanting to join, you can. That now exists. And it's completely like, and you can also quit anytime you want to. So you're not locked into anything. It's just a thing that I'm doing that has a few extra perks. And you'll get badges here in the live chat. You'll get emoticons that others don't see. Or can't use, and you'll get these occasional things. And like the Spock fans, which Spock is right there, going by, they get some kind of wallpaper, some kind of nice picture, a close-up that can be on any device you want each month. So there's some perks. The other news, because I always tell you everything, is I've been trying to get sleep all week. And I would tell Dwayne, I need 9 hours of sleep. I have been getting 3.5. I need rest. And I went to bed the other night, and it still was like 2. And I woke up to the sound of the anemone cube overflowing again. This is 3 times in the last 3 months where it didn't do it once in 8 years. I am unbelievably annoyed that this was happening. And of course, I leaped out of the bed, and I'm cussing now, which I don't do. And I forget Dwayne's even in the house, and he's hearing me, son of a... And I was like, I'm over here stopping the zero-edge anemone cube that is just flowing water all over the floor again. Yeah. Another rose bubble tip went into the overflow box and into the drain and down the pipe all the way into the sump. And it blocked the water, and I had to deal with the cleanup again. And it's super frustrating. And, some people have said, well, why don't you just put like a leak detector under the tank? I heard it the moment it started. I woke up from a dead sleep again for this disaster, and I cleaned it up. It's fine. So I wanted to let you know I'm still thinking new tank, more drains, emergency drain.
Emergency drain.
You've been saying get rid of a lot of anemones just because there's not enough rock for them. I
think it's his bioload has reached a critical mass, and the anemones are trying to find new real estate territory. So
yeah. And because of that, there's just not a place for someone to go, so they go wherever they can.
Yeah.
But what's so crazy is I'm constantly watching them, and if I see them near the overflow box, I kind of coach them away.
Yeah.
So to find a big old fat rose in the drain, I was like, what? When? When did you do this?
Trying to climb over to the next tide pool.
Yeah, so I did that. We also, before this happened, now we're going to start to talk about this. I'm sure we're good on everything here. Any surprises? Anything I'm not ignoring? No.
I've been watching the
No
comments.
bad comments. All right, good. All right. So the next step of getting ready, Dwayne's been here for a few days working on something else. And then when we wanted to work on the tank, I said, well, we need salt water. A lot of it. And I have a saltwater vat filled to the top with water, but the Vectra pump had failed a couple months ago. And to remove it, you know, it's a hassle factor. It's in a corner. It's going to put water all over the floor. It's like, the last thing I want to do. I ran out of time. I had to do it. Dwayne's like, yes, fix it. So I got down there. I disconnected it. I put towels down there where to absorb as much water as possible. And I removed the pump. I took out the impeller. And you might have seen my Instagram. I did the cool little 10-second video of CLR just cleaning off the calcification off the magnet. Guys, that was amazing. I have this little adorable glass. It's bigger than a shot glass, smaller than a drinking glass. I think it was like a jelly that you like peeled off the foil, and you're supposed to throw away this jar. I was like, this is awesome. This could be melting fish food. I mean, it's just that size that you can never buy anywhere. And I put in half of the CLR, and I took that big old impeller and dropped it in. The liquid went right up and covered all the magnet and nothing else. And I swear, within 5 minutes or less, maybe 4 minutes, I just looked at it, and it was completely clean. I didn't touch it. I didn't take a toothbrush to it. I didn't do anything. I just let that lime deposit thing dissolve it all. And I've used muriatic acid. I've used vinegar. I mean, there's a lot of things you can use. I just grabbed the CLR. Whatever. I did it. I can rinse it off when I'm all done and clean up and put it back in. No big deal. Which I did.
Yeah.
And the pump wouldn't turn on. I was like, ah! And where the cord goes in the back of the pump, there was actually rust. So something had literally failed in my pump. Something leaked out the back maybe and ruined the pump, and it was under warranty. I contacted Ecotech. I told them what happened. They sent me a new pump. It's actually going to be here, I don't know, could be here today. Could be here on Monday. But because I sell Ecotech gear, I stick one off the shelf, and I removed just the pump from the brand new box because there's a driver and there's a power supply and there's all this other stuff. And I was like, I just need the pump. And I put it in, turned right on, and I was able to make salt water. And I used a Reef salt calculator to determine how much salt I need to add. It was pretty great because Dwayne saw me get on the computer and I did this thing and it said you need 70.95 pounds of salt. So basically 71 pounds. And I took one small bucket. I have this small blue bucket. It's maybe a gallon. I filled up to about an inch from the top. It's not very precise. Yeah. And I put it on the scale. I was like, well, that's 10 pounds, 6 ounces. So I need 7 of these.
Yeah.
And I put that in, and then I measured salinity. It was dead on. I didn't have to add like one more cup and a tablespoon. And even you were like, wow, how did you do that?
I it myself because I
it's so wonderful.
Have 5 gallons left in my water change bin, and to be able to, rather than just guess a half a bag or something, that would definitely be convenient.
Oh, it's so nice. I just like to know the real number. Yeah. And when I measured the vat of 250 gallons of RLDI with some salt, it measured 1.005. And I was like, okay. And I want it to be 1.026. 71 pounds later, boom, I was there. Okay, so now we've got salt water mixed up. We have a big reef tank full of corals that is way too full. I mean, we had monster colonies that basically, as one dies, it wants to take its neighbor out, and this neighbor, like a wildfire. And Dwayne spent days looking at the tank, and I really thought he was intimidated this time. You did this 4 years ago.
Yeah.
October 2017, you came, and we took out a coral that was 4 feet wide, almost 3 feet. It was one giant piece. There's a fantastic picture of it that I've shared with you a few times. It was in Coral Magazine.
Yeah.
And I remember you were like, okay, let's start cutting. And I'm standing right next to him. We had the walkboard in the back. And we're both kneeling on there, and he's got the bone shears, and he's like, cut. And he's like, cut. And he's thinking he's going to be cutting like for a while. And you got to like pillar number 3 and went snip, and the thing goes, and he was like, oh my God. And that's that picture. Someone was standing here, and they're like, click. I love that photograph of you.
Absolutely. Probably the my favorite
You were
picture
so
of the two of us
shocked.
working together.
Yeah,
for
because
sure,
it showed the entire thing just going toward the front panel. And I was like, nope, I expected that. I was ready because I know my corals.
Yeah.
They may be ginormous, but they started from a frag, and I know where that starting point was.
Yeah.
And when they grow, they don't like keep encrusting. They go up and out,
Yeah.
and there's a focal point.
Yeah.
And that's what you're trying to hit some of those, expecting I'll get out the Shadowcaster, then I'll get out the Milka, then I'll get out the Monty.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope, all of it.
Yeah. And it held true for last night for a few of the pieces we took out as well.
It really did.
Several pieces encrusted and grown onto each other.
So some of the things we talked about is where we're going to put things as we're working. Before we even started, we were mapping out kind of what we wanted. We had talked about, are we going to change Aquascape? And one of the things Dwayne has been saying to me repeatedly is, the rock work is perfect. I don't want to change a boulder.
Yeah.
And I kept complaining in the past that this part here was straight horizontal. It irritated me.
Out.
It's like a straight line, and I didn't like the straight line with a few twigs coming off of it. So we actually changed it a little bit, and that was what we discussed, to make the rock go up a little higher on this side, and then kind of come up a little bit, and then we're going to bring this down. All this is going to come down today lower. We're going to lower it down so you have a view from the end that kind of rises up to get a nice view. And in that situation, so we had kind of a plan, and then I said, I have one other thing I want to do, Dwayne. Like, what's that? I said, I want to take the Shadowcaster and I want to put it over there. And he was like,
Shocking.
Really?
Shocking.
Really? I was like, yeah, I think I want it to grow big over there and have something new here. Because there are certain things that are showpieces. The Shadowcaster was always the showpiece. The sea bay with all the skunks is a showpiece. The giant chalice that went through here like a glacier or a river bend or whatever you want to call that, that lava flow, it was a showpiece, but it was too big, and it completely had everything come together. You couldn't even see this horseshoe right through here. So I said we have to cut it, and Dwayne again last night, it was 10 o'clock at night, I was like, hey, we haven't ordered food and everything's closing. And so I left, and when I came back, the entire chalice is off the rock work.
Yeah.
And you were worried you wouldn't be able to remove it.
Yeah.
And it came off like...
Mark, like I said, Mark knows his corals, and they're growing, and their growth patterns. I'm more SPS, so I expect them to be encrusted in a 1 or 2 inch spot. And Mark said, I was like, oh my God, that chalice, I'm just going to take a hammer and chisel. And he said, well, you could probably just get up and pop the whole thing off like a giant potato chip. It's not really encrusted all 4 of those rocks. And he came in, and sure enough, I had literally a chalice that was
the whole thing,
14 inches by 8 to 10 inches wide.
Yeah.
And what people, I've been in person with Mark's tank enough times. I know how big it is, but when I watch his live streams and videos, or your videos, you lose the context of how large it is. So when I took that chalice out, I was just in shock. I'm like, oh my God, there's this huge cave back here that's literally 24 inches deep and probably 16 inches around that the fish are down in. You can see those couple anthias.
Yeah.
That is enormous. You don't understand how big Mark's tank is unless you see it in person.
A sense of scale.
And now, of course, everything is dwarfed in here.
Well, the good news is, everyone always says, well, how did you aquascape it? You can see it.
Yeah.
So y'all get to see where the rock is, because you couldn't see any rock in the previous reef.
Yes.
It was that much coral, and there was... So anyway, we removed this giant section, and you could tell it was hurting his feelings more and more. He was just like, wow, that was a lot of coral. And, he knows I'm not a grower to sell. I'm not like going to go make 40 frags, and I'm going to be selling these frags for the next 6 months. I don't have like a whole room that's dedicated to like 1 billion frag plugs.
And or a local fish store that's willing to take it readily.
Right.
It's hard.
So. I even called one of the stores and said, hey, I'm thinking about bringing out a bunch of coral to you. They said, we're full up. You can call us next Wednesday. I'm like, okay, or I won't.
Yeah.
So so we did more stuff I didn't tell you about. Told you I fixed the saltwater vat. Then the next logical thing to do was to deal with the frag tank, which I have told you for over 2 years I need to reset this tank. And my brain has said 50 times, buy a new tank or build a new tank and just replace it. Because the inside of the acrylic was ruined by some kind of weird calcification. No matter how much you clean, you can't see through it. It kind of looks like you're looking through a shower curtain. It just doesn't look good. It's a little better, but it's
Yeah.
bad. It's like there's some kind of a
It's
like
not
a film.
It's a utility tank. It's not a
It's
display
ruined.
tank anymore.
It's
That's for
ruined.
sure.
And I thought, well, if I take the tank out and polish it, I can do a video about buffing acrylic and fixing it. Because I never fix acrylic. I buy new, I make new, I sell it, it's gone.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit there with a buffer for a week. I watch all these guys do it, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe you did all that work. And like, oh yeah, but it looks so good. I'm like, it looks awful. I mean, the task is so,
Yeah.
But then I thought maybe I should learn how in case I ever get a scratch.
Well, and then your average hobbyist can't necessarily afford a new acrylic tank.
Right.
So when you buy used, you're forced to buff it.
Yes.
So a tutorial would be great for them.
So I who knows? Someday maybe. Yeah. But in the meantime, what we did, Dwayne got excited. He looked at. I had a Mahano ranch growing up. I mean, there was like 1 million Mahanos. They were back. I did a video years ago where I showed you me scraping them off, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my god, I have no patience for that. I could never do that." I was like, "Yeah, it's actually not bad. I just pop them off like peas, bloop, 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 and knock them into the work tray, and I put the next rock. I put the rock back, grab another one, and keep going. And I do a rock every night for a week, and it's done. And I missed like 6, and those 6 turned into 1,000. And I have been regretting that one. It's like, God, Mark. And so Dwayne, he has this wonderful solution. He likes to destroy the live rock, which I'm not a fan of. I love live rock. And he said, I'm going to put it through bleach overnight and kill the Mahanos. And it's going in muriatic acid to take off the outside layer. And then we're going to dechlorinate it. It's going to go in your reef. I'm thinking, I don't know if I want that white rock in my tank. So he did exactly what I described. And while he was doing that, I said, okay, I want to remove all the substrate. I don't trust the sand. And I don't trust the rock. I really don't. There's something wrong with that tank. It's been a problem for a long time. And even Dwayne, as he was working on the rock, he said, what is wrong with this rock, Mark? Why is it this color? What are these black flakes?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I had a vendor, some new company starting up, goes, hey, Mark, I want to send you our sand and our rock, and you can check it out. And I was like, okay. And I set up the tank with it, and it looked pretty. And the tank was okay for a little while. And within like 9 months or so, the little fish I'd added died. But that wasn't a trigger. That didn't make me think. And then anything I put in there didn't do well. And I ended up rescuing some clownfish that were being bullied. They survived. I had this damsel. It survived. I'm like, okay. I had a coral butte I put in there. It was okay. And then the calcium always measured 600. It would never come down. And I hadn't dosed calcium in 2 years. And I thought, there's something with this rock or the substrate or both. So I told Dwayne, I want to rip it all out. And he was like, okay. So that was our next step, because we knew as we took out giant colonies out of here, they had to go somewhere. So he worked on rock, did everything he could to make usable pieces or destroy and just get rid of. And I scraped the tank clean from top to bottom as best I could, even though you can't see through it well, but at least we can see something. And I removed all the substrate, I shop vacked it, I rinsed it and shop vacked it again. And then we put in 2 brand new bags of Fiji pink Tropic Eden sand. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Even you were like, man, this is nice sand, let's use it all.
Yep.
And I really was surprised you'd want sand in there, because I know frag tanks, you want tons of flow.
In a small ecosystem like that, it is its own standalone tank. So I'm a believer that sand is as good as live rock. It's a good nutrient sink. You have to maintain it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always telling him he needs a turkey-based sand or do something with it. But at the same time, let's not forget to tell your users or your members that we didn't bleach and kill all the rock. We took quite a bit of the base rock that was 99% Mahano free, and it's down in the sump.
In the refugium.
In the refugium. Yeah. We can't just start a tank over sterile and expect SPS corals to survive and then put 3 fish in there. We have to have something for some denitrifying.
No, that's a good point. So yeah, the skimmer, all that was still running. Yeah. What we did a giant water change on that tank. I mean, I drained it down to the plastic. There was no water, and we pumped out almost all the water out except for the rock that was submerged in the refugium. We left that still with enough water to keep it wet so it wasn't exposed. And then we filled up with tank water. We took my 80+ nitrate water and put it in the frag tank. I was like, this seems like a terrible decision. He's like, it's the same water. The reef will not know the difference. Like, all right.
Corals are going to be happier that way, for sure.
We filled it up. We turned on the pump. The protein skimmer is pulling out all kinds of stuff. But you know what? The water didn't get cloudy. No. I mean, not at all.
No.
That sand was so nice.
Yeah.
I mean, we added water and we pumped it from here into there, and you pointed at a
Just
rock,
splashed it on a rock,
so it wouldn't hit the sand.
Yeah.
And then we turned on the return pump, and then after like an hour, we turned on the Nero for
Yeah.
some in-tank circulation. And the water stayed clear the whole time. The skimmer pulled out some, typical clay-like sludge stuff that it does in the next, overnight actually.
Yep.
And then as we worked in the tank, we had somewhere to put some corals. And what we did was we drained the tank down to about here and started removing corals. And they would go into that tank. And that was it. And then we drained more water down to here and put that in a cooler. I have a huge, giant white cooler like you'd bring to a picnic for a corporate party where it could hold like 300 drinks or something.
I think it's 4.5 feet long.
Yeah, it's a
cooler.
huge cooler. And we filled up with water. We put a heater in there and an air stone just for a little tiny bit of circulation. And the water, again, from the Reef.
Yeah.
And you took, like, the giant, there was a huge Monty with a chalice that's really pretty. Yeah. And you took it out, and it's about, where is the camera? It was about this big, and he's holding it. I was like, wow, Mark. And I was like, yeah, I knew that was big. And he's like, but wow. And I was like, I know. Yeah. And he went to the cooler, and he goes, it actually fit. And then he got back up on the ladder. Which, it's just those little moments are just so funny to me. Because you just don't realize how large the corals are in here. They seem kind of, they're nice, and there's lots of them. And
I'm reading some of the comments, and some of your members are used to my tank. They know my tank. And I have corals that are big. People consider my corals big, 8, 12 inches. And I have a strawberry shortcake that's 12 inches by 8 inches. Yeah. But my corals are small compared to Mark's.
He took out the biggest one, this one right here. This was the scrolling pavona or cactus pavona.
Yeah.
Looks like a cabbage head, whatever you want to call it. And Dwayne grabbed it, and he lifted it out of the water. I was like, oh my God. And he's getting down, and I was like, wait, I got to take a picture. Wait. Yeah. And he's already into the room like before, because you know the way he is. He'll just take it to a cooler and smash it. And I'm like, wait. So I chased him over there with the camera, and I said, hold it. And I said, now hold it up by your head. So you could see, it was like a pumpkin next to his head.
Bigger than my head, for sure.
It absolutely was bigger than his head. And then we broke it into 3 or 4 sections. And this is one nice piece I liked. I kind of like the shape.
Yeah.
And I know you're still thinking, I can't believe that's all you wanted of it. But I know it'll grow. It grows really well in my tank.
That's the only option I gave him. Well, everything else was smaller.
Yeah. Well, no, there was a couple chunk, man. There's still, I could see one man in the front.
Yeah, but
there's a big piece, Andrea.
It's always nice to have something that's a little more natural to start with instead of a fan or something. Something round is going to be better.
Not just a chip.
Yeah.
So we so now we had corals in the cooler and in the frag tank, and of course somewhere on the sand as we move things, and we worked, and we kind of rearranged. We added a brand new rock behind Dwayne. If you look super hard behind the vortex, you'll see there's one white rock. That's one of his bleached rocks. And he said, look, Mark, I know you don't want this brand new white rock in your tank because everyone's going to see it. I was like, no. And he goes, we could hide it under another rock.
Yeah.
And we had some other rocks that were really encrusted with pavona, which is not the cactus. It's more like a green skin that's furry. And I actually like that coral a lot. And what Dwayne loves to do anytime he finds it in my tank is he takes the rock and turns it upside down because he thinks it'll die. Which, of course, it doesn't. It comes back on the top and tries to eat everything it can.
I got to slow things down in Mark's tank because I only come down every 4 years.
So we got that coral. We flipped the rocks. So a lot of the rocks you're looking at now, and there's going to be some really nice close-up video that I'm going to be sharing. Not on the stream, but on YouTube. You can see tons of sponge in many colors. And you even took the time to remark on this. Like, wow, I never see red sponge. I see orange, I see white. But there was a lot of cool life in there, and he was really he couldn't help but acknowledge how nice live rock is.
Trying to look at the bright side as I'm stripping his tank down and just wreaking havoc and destruction, knowing that it's going to be basically a new tank starting over again. I'm reminding myself because it is hard to take your mature colonies and cut them into just a quarter that's going to take 9 to 12 months before it starts to look natural again.
Yeah.
So I have to remind myself that there's still a lot of beauty in it. And to see the healthy ecosystem, like you say, with the live rock, a lot of people comment they have 3 or 4 types of sponge. And when you've got sponges I've never seen in 15 years, that's impressive too.
Yeah. No, I've had this rock forever, and I don't want to bleach and muriatic acid it.
No.
I understand why. Okay, I get it. We don't want the pests or whatever.
Yeah.
And to try and scrape off Mahanos would be a nightmare. There was too many.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't complain. I was like, you know what? Just do your thing.
And
Just do it. I'm not going to do it, so you can do it.
yeah, in my 210, I've had that. I had a Mahano infestation. I took what I thought was good and muriatic acid in it. It didn't kill the Mahanos.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, they sucked into their holes and they
waited.
grew back. A year later, I literally tore my tank down and did the 24-hour bleach. And I had to cycle the rock. It was, it was a month process. It's hard to take your whole ecosystem and tear it apart and start over.
Yeah.
So
So
little experience with it, unfortunately.
So that's where we are now. That's what we were able to manage to do from like 8 o'clock at night to 3 in the morning. 2 people working on the tank. That's like 10 solid hours of work. I mean, we took a break for eating for maybe 30 minutes.
That's best.
And, I could see how he really was upset. And he was blown away that I wasn't crazy. I was upset 4 years ago. I was really upset 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of mentally built up I don't know, maybe it's because I've been through so much this year. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I don't care. Throw your worst at me.
Yeah, I think you handled it better than I did. And
Yeah, it was really funny how much it bothered him because he loves to reset a tank. That is his favorite thing in the world. I'm like, why? It's so pretty. Leave it alone. You're like, no, it's got to go.
Yeah.
And you've done it so many times to your own tank, but his tank always is beautiful. Within 6 months. But one of the tricks that Dwayne does that you may not be aware of is when he's replanting his tank, he isn't actually planting a bunch of 1-inch frags. He is planting small things the size of a lime, a lemon, a fist, something. So you have these nice little objects, these little colonies, and then it grows into big colonies and fills his tank, and it's fantastic. And it's SPS driven, so it grows rapidly. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I woke up this morning feeling a lot better about this tank, knowing that we have a few pieces in here that are 4 or 5 inches tall. I brought you what I think I said 5 staghorns that were some of my fastest growing staghorns.
Yeah,
so that this skyline will hopefully fill in the next 6 months and start to really develop some character and some color, so that you guys, the users, when you're watching him, can be entertained and then, like I say, just watch the growth from month to month. So,
well, we were talking this morning about what it was going to be like when you guys saw it, and I said, the hardest part is they're used to seeing something, and now this is what we're going to see every Saturday for like the next 6 months. Yeah. And that's a difference. I said, now if you were posting this on a forum, you would say, hey guys, last night I went crazy and I really stripped my reef down, and you'd post 3 pictures and you'd vanish for 4 months. And then you'd post a new picture like, hey guys, here I am, it's April, and and they're like, oh, your tank looks great. But when you guys see it every single week and you've known it every single week, it's a monster change, and that's why I had to prepare you guys for today with that camera down there. And I don't know, it's okay. I'm not in love with it. Whatever, but it will grow. I'll tell you this. I also told you guys I had a faulty test kit, the nitrate kit. It lied to me. Sure, it felt nice to see yellow and like, oh, it is 10 or less. But I knew it was lying. Yeah. And I told the fish store, I told Frank, and he says, well, you just need to shake the blank out of that bottle. I'm like, no, it's the kit's bad. And I shook the blank out of that bottle just to try one more time, and it said nitrates were 40. I'm like, still don't believe it. Yeah. So went and returned the kit, got a new one, came home. It was over 80, which is insane. Yeah. And even during the few days you were here, we watched one Monty like literally change in its look. Yeah. And I was like, I'm telling you, something's not right. So we did our thing. It could be bacterial nature, because I did ICP tests and everything came back with no surprise except nitrate. Last night, when we had everything out that we could get out, we siphoned a lot of the sand. And we pulled out a lot of detritus. And like the big, huge cave that Dwayne was talking about down here where the Anthias is hanging out, that was never been touched in 8 years because I couldn't get to it. And I even told him, before you plant SPS, let's do some sand bed. And he's like, but it's 3. I'm like, just take 30 minutes, And because I knew once I had that big tube and I'm putting it in there, it's going to break all these things he just put on there with a little bit of glue. And, I got to be honest, I'm watching him glue these corals, and I've glued corals, I've puttied corals, and I cannot believe what he can do, because he could take a rock that's like this and put an acro on the side like this, that's this big around, with a blob of glue, and it stays. And I'm just like, I would try that and just watch it go bloop, 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 and I put a rock under it to hold it up and let it cure for a day, and then maybe it'd stay. And he just rubs some glue on there and rubs some glue and pushes it and pokes it and irritates it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't sleep last night because I subconsciously picked super glue off my finger in my sleep all night. It was a restless sleep.
And he says, I'm going to get up early. I was like, no, sleep in. And he was like, I'll be up in the morning. I just closed my door. I was like, I don't care what you do. I got up at the crack of noon like a normal person today because I knew how late we were up last night, and all this whole week I didn't get enough rest. So essentially this is the Aquascape. I don't think there'll be any changes. We may rearrange some things.
We took this rock where the shadow caster was actually, I think, in here.
Yeah.
Because remember we
had to swim through for a little bit.
A little bit where the pagoda cup is. But as much as anything, this was pretty level all the way across. And we thought about that as being a flat skyline. But when you do bommies with huge crevasses and something like this, it's hard to get any coral. I mean, even a monopora or even an LPS to grow in it. So we decided that's a bad idea. So I did drop this down 4 inches and raise this up 6 inches here, just to give it a slight bit more character. But there's only, like I say, the rock works amazing. There's only so much we can do without causing avalanches.
I just saw a comment. Alex just posted it, and he's dead right. He says, "Is that anemone bleach? What's going on?" That's been the problem with my tank for the last 6 months. I felt like things are pale. They're not vivid rich, and I don't know why. And I kept thinking my metal halides are dim. And I know that sounds crazy because it's a light bulb that's on or off. It's not adjustable. And I kept looking at my tank thinking, it's not bright enough. What is going on? And I was really wondering legitimately if there was a problem. Well, when we installed the skies, we measured the PAR of the tank with metal halide, and then we measured the PAR of the tank with the skies, and we lowered the intensity of the skies to match the metal halides. And after 2 weeks, I raised all lighting 10%. And now I run the skies at the peak of the day at 60% of what they run. You run yours at?
100%. And our tanks are the same depth. So
So I have a lot of wiggle room, and I can crank up the lighting. I honestly believe, Alex, that what's happening is the nitrates are just doing chaos in my tank, and while the stuff has survived it and endured it, it's not great for it. And so so I didn't actually finish what we did. We did all the stuff we vacuumed, and then when we wanted to pump the water in, because the tank was getting cold. Our sump had all the gear in it, including the heaters and the probes, so the sump never changed. The water in the frag tank felt okay. The water in the cooler felt okay, but we put your hand on the Reef, it felt cold, like it had maybe dipped to 75,
a couple degrees,
74.
nothing major, but
And so Dwayne says, we need to start putting water in the tank. It's like, all right. So I have this very large coil of 1-inch braided hose from the poly tank that's right there. That's full of water. It's 250 gallons of water. And I put the hose on top of the tank, and I put it into a 7-inch filter sock and just held the sock and the hose with one hand and didn't move, and turned the valve and let it just pump water into the tank. And it probably took 5 minutes to fill the tank back up to here, to when I can now put on the return pump and actually let all the coral slime and all the crap on the surface go through the drain and get down and dump into a 7-inch sock. Let the protein skimmer do its job, let the heaters do their job. And we actually looked, and the tank temperature, once we resumed it, was actually, the low point was 76.5?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was actually less, but, but we took care of it, and we refilled it, and we ended up using about 125 gallons of salt water. So that was a 125-gallon saltwater water change last night on the tank. I still have over 100 left, so we can do one more. And we checked nitrate today, and it was probably 60. So it's come down some. And, we have more work to do on this end of the tank specifically. Like I said, we're going to go in here. We're going to lower the hammers, remove we removed a lot of those anemones. A lot. And you were super worried about that. Like, man, that's going to be no fun. And I'm like, bloop, bloop, bloop. I'm just pulling them off. It's like, how are you doing that? But these little bubble tips that I've told you that I've been starting to sell, they don't hold on like a regular bubble tip that goes in the crevasses and you can't remove. And we plucked out 40 or 50 out of the tank.
I don't have thumbnails, and I can peel them off with my thumbnail. They're just loosely on everything, which is amazing.
And, I just removed those. So we got some more to remove here, lower this, vacuum here, do a little more vacuum in the back and not hit any of the new SPS, do a water change, maybe nitrates, tomorrow will be down around, 40. Who knows? We'll see.
We still have about 4 or 5 kinds of monoporas and crusting and plating monoporas.
We have chalices to put back.
Chalices to put back.
The yellow scroll.
The yellow scroll still doesn't have a home.
Yeah. And one of the other things that we discussed, these are very important things for you guys to know. It's not just us recapping, but when you're working in your own tank, one of the things that my tank has been a problem with is it was very monochromatic. You had all the browns, you had all the greens, you had it wasn't colorful in that regard because you didn't have the contrast. So we were saying, where can we put that pagoda where it enhances the look of that Lobo? Where can we put this? Where will the yellow scroll look best in this tank? And right now, keep in mind, you're looking at it under the ideal conditions for a live stream. This is not the glow. We turned on the glow last night, and Dwayne's like, man, this tank's still pretty, even though it's empty. He could see all the glowing pieces. And I was like, but that's not how we film for the live stream, because otherwise you're just going to have this blue tank, and you can't see anything, and we're right back to crappy live streams. And I'd much rather give you high-quality daylight lighting, and so I literally picked these colors for the stream. And now we're shooting in 4K. We're using a Nikon D500, and for the last few weeks you've gotten to kind of get used to me getting used to the camera, and
well,
this is where we're at.
And one thing with the live stream, we both commented that the tank looks washed out.
Yep.
Every bit of rock was literally covered with coral, so now it's white. There's no coralline
Let me zoom in
on any of it, and the sand bed is white. So Mark's lighting spectrum that he's been streaming with, that's worked so great, is now is just wrong. So we'll get back into it.
There's a new addition in the tank, guys. I don't know if you'll see it, but it's in here somewhere.
What is it? Oh.
There's a coral beauty in here somewhere. But we don't know where it is. Spock, you're in the way. You're always in the way, Spock. So you can see the copper band. By the way, this coral right down here, I think I'm zoomed in as far as I can go, actually, because this camera's pretty far away. Hang on, I'm trying to adjust things very backwards.
This one here?
Yeah.
Let's see. That one.
Will that go more?
Up,
I can.
This one.
Yeah.
Right there.
So that one was actually from Ryan's 1,000-gallon reef, and it was lying on the sand under the Montes growing. Now, there's a piece that broke. I bet Spock bumped it, and it just kind of snapped and landed in the colony. But it's actually a really nice, probably a granulosa.
Yeah.
And we will see what it turns into in the coming months. Dwayne intentionally planted it low. I'm going to back up so you can see the distance from the top of the tank where it is. We're thinking it likes low light because it did so well on the sand. And then the other one is right here. Oh, sorry guys. Couldn't do this. So this one here. Oh, there's my little fungias, by the way, guys. You're always like, where are you getting these things from? I grow them.
The babies.
That's my little babies. All right, so right above it is this one. Any guess what this is? Loripes or something? I always think Loripes. I don't know. Deep water?
Yeah, it's definitely a deep water.
So that one also was completely down in the bottom of the tank, in the back, touching the glass, growing onto the glass, and there was like this thin skin, and when I lifted it away from the tank, it came off the glass with the skin, and the skin was across the front where he's pointing. That was solid. And we just chipped off the little flakes so you can see the branches again.
So that's actually a flat dead nub right there.
There is, yeah, you're right. I see that now.
Yeah. So I'm hoping they'll encrust over themselves. It's probably living tissue. It's just the backside of living tissue.
It is, yeah.
So.
But now it's open up, and so things can go just do the thing. I'll show you a couple of new things in the tank if I can have a little bit better control here. I'm going to zoom out again because otherwise that makes it too sick. Here along the top, we're going to try something we haven't tried in a long time. So way up there near Maryland.
Oh yeah.
Is a green slimer. Now, green slimer is my last kryptonite. I just can't grow green slimer. So this coral actually polyped out and seems to like 80 nitrate, 60 nitrate. We'll see what it does. It's supposed to be a fast grower. It's very old school. It's Aquapora Youngay, and it could turn into a beautiful colony. Dwayne has a giant chunk of it at the end of his reef. And then to the right of it is a really pretty millie right there. I should have set up this tripod differently. It's very hard to do all the controls backwards. Sorry, guys. Oh, I'm zoomed in as far as I can go. So that's a very hairy millie right there, Acropora millifora, and it's purple. So under the right lighting, it's going to be great. Under the wrong lighting, like blue lighting, it won't look like anything.
It's
Because
actually
purple looks like nothing in blue, right?
actually under LED that gets a silvery blue highlights to
Okay,
it.
cool.
So
Cool.
it's there's more to it than just a purple coral. It's a pretty nice one.
So that gives you guys a little bit of a close up, a couple things. I mean, there's nothing major like you're like, oh my god. I mean, this right here was a nice new addition that Dwayne brought me. A forest fire, I think you called
Yeah,
it.
the forest fire Monopora digitata.
Two tangs crossing. That
Put
was
it
cool.
put it right there where his tangs can frag it on a routine basis once it gets big.
They can, yeah, that's true.
Very brittle coral.
But so that'll be a nice change of pace. Again, putting some reds near a green or near a brown. This down here is actually not a really pretty area, but it's getting a ton of light, so it could turn into something gorgeous. That's actually all sunset monopora, which is orange base with green polyps. And it's been completely shaded for well over a year, if not longer. Now it's exposed to a ton of light, so it could end up being a very nice coral again. Normally, it would just be like, I can't even find the spot, but I would say like right here, that was pretty and everything behind it was really pale. But we'll see. The big point was just getting the tank cleaned up and decluttered and create more flow and more swimming space, and we've definitely accomplished that.
For sure. Yeah, and you keep talking about high nitrate. I was shocked when I brought Mark these corals down. There's the Oregon tort, the infamous Oregon tort that's been in the hobby for years, which is actually one of the hardest torts to grow. It's the slowest growing and the fastest to die when things aren't perfect. Has better polyp extension in Mark's tank than it does in mine. Having said that, Mark keeps asking me what my parameters are. I don't know. I don't test. I'm lazy.
Which is so funny to me.
So,
I'm over here telling people, test your water weekly, and you're like, never,
I
ever
haven't
test.
tested for nitrate and phosphate in probably 2 years. So,
You see how well this crown is working for me?
yeah,
I haven't had to clear my throat once.
perfect.
Told you. It's a cure. It's like Switzerland. Low alcohol.
Yeah.
All right, that's kind of it, guys. We could answer some questions, probably. Let me scroll way up here. And if you did anything, if you by any chance put @Reef, that will help me a lot better at finding your comments. It looks like we haven't had any disasters. My moderators did not send me a chat. Thank God. Because that's been an ongoing problem for some time. One person said, whatever you're fragging, I want it. You know, a lot of the, like we were talking earlier, a lot of the big stuff you can't ship. It won't make it there intact.
Yeah, I wish I could have brought larger pieces down for Mark, because I have plenty of coral as a grower. But with shipping, it's a matter of the balance between water and coral. And since I was flying it, I didn't want to bring anything monstrous down. At 30,000 feet, 54 below zero, I was a little worried that it was going to be frozen when we got here.
And brittle. And it just ricochets in the bag and just shatters, and you have 10 pieces instead of a nice, beautiful thing you put in there.
So, unfortunately, brought him a bunch of 2-inch frags instead of mini colonies.
Our next question is, what is that black piece covering your lights? This is just foam board like they use for signs. And it's very light. I can just remove it with one hand and not hurt Dwayne. And then I just have it hanging on a couple of nails. I actually have plans for something really cool that maybe will happen later this year.
Next one over.
No, it's fine.
No, next one over.
I'm telling you, I got it right.
No, you don't.
I do.
It's right there, see?
I can see it. Oh, you changed it.
Yeah, that one. I changed it.
All right, it must be fresh. All right, got it.
And then doing construction.
I do have plans for something nicer, but for now, this works as a good shield. I actually don't mind having it open and seeing the lights, but you know, when you're watching TV, it's nice to not have the glare coming in from above. And it definitely interrupts the camera because it's splashing onto the sensor. Right. John says, was that Crown Royal and Coke? Absolutely, that's my drink. And that's a Crown Royal Reserve, which doesn't need Coke, but I'm in the mood. So, with that. It's kind of nice to see that people are not hating the tank so far.
Well,
we'll see how far, you know, this is the early part of the chat before they actually got a really good look.
But having, at the same time, with the Reef in long term, remember my talk for the Dallas group was what's routine and what's out of the routine for maintenance. And with a reef that's 10 years old, something like this ultimately has to be routine. Unless you're doing a certain section at a time. I'm trying to not do a full teardown and do sections at a time.
Yeah.
But since, like I said, I don't fly down here, and Mark doesn't like to get his hands wet, we were committed to doing this. So this is actually routine maintenance for an old reef tank.
Yeah. I'm just putting the comments up. If someone's actually watching this, they're going to read all these reactions from people.
Military haircut. That's funny.
Room for growth. I've just clicked on like 10 different
Yeah.
things to show up. I wish these boxes
Yeah,
were the right size.
Again, I have to remind Mark that I really want to go to the fish store as soon as we're done here and force him to spend some money on a few pieces we were looking at yesterday.
Yeah, like the Red Dragon.
The Red Dragon, I think,
Yeah.
would be a good addition to the tank. You know,
This is Hillbilly Reefer says, "It's fine, bro. A reset is good." I like saying bro. And the tank looks fine, not as drastic as the last time you did it. See?
I think it's more drastic. It's far more drastic.
Yeah. Let's see. Here, Havo says, "I can't wait to see how it grows."
Yep, absolutely.
And somebody wants my drink. There's a lot of comments here. Heck, not a lot of questions today. Maybe like we can't ask him questions. There's too much going on in his head. I'm sure Spock appreciates the swimming room.
Yep, that's for sure.
Let's see. Okay, Flooded Aquatic says, "How long would you wait to put anemones in a new tank with no other corals or fish, assuming parameters are under control?" My answer continues and will always be 9 months. And I like the tanks to be established for 9 months. I like the hobbyist to be used to their tank for 9 months because it's gone through all the phases, all the weird issues, all the disasters have happened. You averted them all. And the main reason why, and this may be a very arbitrary opinion on my part, but it's because I was yelled at when I wanted an anemone a long time ago. And the guy said, "Those live 100 years in the ocean, and you're going to kill it in a year."
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, not on purpose, I'm not going to. And he said, "They shouldn't go in aquariums." And I was like, man, this guy works in a fish store. And he's saying these things to me. I don't know what's happening here. But in the end, I have one anemone still with me that I've had since 2003. So it's coming up on 20 years old of its 100-year life.
And then 9 times out of 10, when someone's asking that question, they're a new reefer.
Yeah.
And they're excited. So having 9 months gives them that time to learn a few mistakes, learn some basics, find the balance of that ecosystem, and then work forward from there. You know, there's always that exception. The experienced reefer that's been doing it 15 years, sure, you can set an anemone cube up
And
maybe do well.
that experienced reefer wouldn't be asking that question.
Exactly.
So the thing is, as Dwayne has mentioned in previous conversations, he can look at his tank from a distance and see a problem based on the reaction of one coral. And if you've had your tank for 9 months, you pretty much know every inch of that tank and the equipment beneath it.
Yeah.
And you can decide if there's a problem before you even go tinkering. And so at that point, I feel like you're perfect for the anemone.
Yeah.
And I know some people say, well, if you put the anemone first, it won't wander everywhere. It may wander anyway. I have them wandering into drain pipes when they have a perfectly good tank.
Yeah.
So I would just say I really recommend 9 months. I would not encourage sooner to anyone. Even trade shows, what do they do with them? They put them in a glass in the tank to keep it in one spot during the 3 days.
Yep.
So that's my opinion.
Yep. My rose bulbs have migrated into my 35-gallon SPS tank. Same thing. They can, like an octopus, wedge themselves through those overflow teeth and do what they want.
Lisa just said, "Who all went to Facebook to look at an old pic to see what it used to look like?" That's funny. Okay, one thing I did do before we worked on the tank, I forgot to mention this. I filmed everything one last time. So when the video releases, it will be what it looked like, and then it'll be what we were doing. Yeah. And then even tonight, as we work some more, we'll get a little bit more footage and a little bit more pictures of what we're doing tonight. And I'll build this into a whole thing. And it'll be a reef reset video. It'll be nice because it'll kind of give people an idea of what's involved. And I got to say, guys, I'm so used to a big tank, and I know how much work everything is and how long it's going to take, that when some of you, and I'm not saying this to be mean, I swear, it's just kind of ironic in my head, people say, "Oh my God, my green hair algae is just ruining my tank. I just can't take it. And I'm like, okay, well, what size tank do you have? And they said 29 gallons. I'm thinking you could fix that in an hour. I mean, it's just not like dealing with a giant algae problem in a 400-gallon, 7-foot-long tank.
2 years ago, I had green hair algae in my system. I treated with fluconase, and at the same time, it could be hearsay, I treated with ChemiClean for cyanide. The fluconase didn't work. So in my tank, in my system, that's a $50 treatment that was flushed down the drain. I tried it again 2 weeks later, and to ensure that it worked, I spent 4 hours on a Friday night with my cocktail and a toothbrush working on my tank. Ripping it out. And that's part of what we have to do to be successful. It's part of the hobby.
And on small tanks, you can do it. And it'll take you a couple hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, maybe it didn't work because you used fluconase instead of fluconazole.
Well, that's my abbreviated term
okay,
for it.
All right. I thought you used the wrong drug.
No.
Let's see. Okay. Logan says, what are Dwayne's thoughts, impressions of the sky?
I've been an LED user for a lot of years. I built my own first 2 fixtures. I went to black boxes, switched over to Radions, and now I have skies.
Actually, you've had yours before I had mine.
Yes, I have had 3 skies since the end of February, so 4 months now. I think they're a great fixture. I like them. They have a better spread than the black boxes that I had, or Radions. I'm getting better light into the 4 corners of my tank. Even Mark we were commenting this small little tort down in the corner here. Mark was commenting on its color, and I says it's probably getting more light than it ever has in the last couple years.
Yeah.
So.
And that little tort, by the way, guys, I saw it last night. And I was like, oh my God, it's gorgeous. And he says, yeah, we got rid of all that crap. You can see something now. And he was right. And I mean, that thing doesn't look like anything in this video right now. It's it's got a hint of blue. Yeah. But last night, looking from above, it was like, I mean, I hate to say it. It was green, but it was a pretty emerald green. And I was like, wow. And I think it's supposed to have like maybe a yellow tip or something. I don't know.
Well, top downs are always better. I mean, I brought you the pink tip staghorn is a maricultured piece I have, and it doesn't sell well in the stores. I like it though because it has a blue base, an unusual green corallite with pink tips. You don't see that from across the room, but when you look at it at the right angle and you take the time to admire some of these corals, they all have character.
Yeah. I'm going to type this in the chat. Someone asked me, how do I join the club? So I'm going to give them the link. But Dwayne was actually a beta tester of the Sky before I was, because I didn't want to beta test. I literally don't have any desire to deal with whatever can go wrong on top of taking care of my reef.
Yeah.
Where Dwayne's like, sure, I love that idea.
Terrence,
that's his thing, not mine.
Behind scenes, I've been in the NSI group for about 2 years now. I've been a Neptune, I guess you could say fanboy for about 15 years since I got into the hobby. I'm 4th generation Neptune controller, and I jumped at the opportunity when they announced that they were going to be making them. I knew it was something that I was going to want over my tank because I like the integration. I like to be able to just push a button on the wall without having to get on my phone to control my fish tank.
Yeah. I'm going to put this on the screen too. For any of you, I talked to this like 30 minutes ago or an hour ago. I'm just going to throw it on the screen. So if you want to join the YouTube channel as a member, you just go to youtube.com/milosreef/join. That's the link. All right. So I see Ed posted it too. I just want to throw it on the screen I'll leave it on here for couple minutes. It's not doing any harm. Jeremy says, where are all the frags? Well, there's a cooler that is half full of frags right now, and there's a frag tank full of colonies. There is a monster amount of Shadowcaster still left.
There is.
And it's alive.
And Mark actually, last night as we were mounting the Shadowcaster, I mounted 5 or 6 mini colonies, and in this tank they look small. I mean, a couple of these are upwards of 5 inches tall. And I took the nicest piece off of it, and I went, oops, the rest fell into this garbage bucket.
I thought he was joking.
And I was dead serious.
He was serious.
As an aquaculture wholesaler, sometimes it's a necessary evil. I don't have enough room to keep every 1-inch nub that's going to take 9 months to grow. But that's all it's worth. It can't.
Yeah.
There's nothing decorative about it. It's not retailable. You don't have enough room to grow it back into something viable. So it has to just go into a bucket and be a sacrifice.
So what Dwayne does not know about me, I'm going to teach you about me today that you never knew. When a coral breaks, you don't sell it. You put it back in the colony and make it thicker. How do you think I had a ginormous, thick, dense Shadowcaster?
Yeah.
A branch broke as I reached in the tank. It's like, oh, and I put it into the colony. Yeah. And it became thicker and more, and it's just like bird's nest. Bird's nest is super brittle stuff, but you can put a pile up in the corner and have a colony, and in about 6 months, you'll have a colony. And I do the same with my SPS corals because I'm not a sharer, which is ironic. I share everything, but it's like, oh, corals, no, those are mine. So, yeah, I walk in there, and I'm like, hey! And he's like, what? I told you. I'm like, I thought you were kidding. And I take the coral out, and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm through the saw. I'm cutting all these pieces and saving. He goes, that's junk. I was like, no, there's some really good pieces still here.
There were a couple tips, but
and I put them inside the pile, and so I have a thicket of Shadowcaster in my frag tank. But he says, Mark, in 4 months, you're going to have a dead coral there because it's not the flow, not the light, not the everything you need. And he's not wrong.
So last night I was guessing that this was going to be about a 14 person-hour, man-hour process.
Yes.
And we have about 10 hours into it. My guess is we're going to end up being 3 or 4 hours tonight.
Yep.
Taking care of that end of the tank. We still want to do some rearranging, some trimming. We still have to do some more planting. That doesn't include the stuff that's in the coolers and in the frag tank. We still have to. He has to make me some frag racks.
Yeah.
And I can start cutting and gluing coral and making frags. So we're probably going to end up with 150 frags realistically.
Yeah.
And
oh, by the way, guys, I have a basket filled with anemones. He's like, are you really saving all of these? And I was like, I'm just like, bloop, bloop. And he's like, wow, you're actually saving every one of them.
So knowing that he's selling some of these nymphs to you people, that I kept going, oh, well, this is good. You can actually give these away as freebies to people.
Yeah.
Because Mark doesn't have a local fish store that's willing to take it, or like I said, the one's too busy.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you can take anything to a fish store, but it would be nice to get something back for it.
There might be some Shadowcaster that can be spread around the U.S. here.
And you know what? It could be an inch of garbage that you didn't like that could turn into something beautiful in their tank. Yeah. I mean, come on, guys. This stuff lives in nitrate. I think anything's better than my tank, right? Your tank is right perfect for it. All right. I want to answer this question because this is a great one. Thank you, EJ. He said, how much did you have to turn down your calcium reactor after this reset? And that was the first thing I thought of this morning. So likewise. You did not stump me. Yep. I thought, and I did. Last night, I checked alkalinity because I had a feeling something had changed because Dwayne and I've been so hypersensitive to how some corals don't look right in the tank. There's plenty that look fine. Yeah. But those Monties have been acting weird, like they don't have magnesium or something, and I'm dosing magnesium daily, so that's not it. I literally watched the jug go down, so it's going in, and it's going in right over the abyss where it gets sucked and blown into the reef.
Yep.
And I'm telling Dwayne, these corals look worse today than they did 2 days ago. And he looked at it, and he was like, you're right. There's like weird brown flecks happening now. And I just replaced the CO2 tank on the calcium reactor, and I thought, what if it was bad gas? What if it was this? Yeah. What if it was that? And so I said, I got to test alkalinity right now in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
So as soon as we had water going and it ran for about 30 minutes, I grabbed a sample and measured about 9.5 to 10. So it's not alkalinity.
Yeah.
So I'm right back to, it's got to be the horrible nitrate.
Could be.
I just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I mean, there's bacterial infection. And I keep reminding him also that as many NEMs were in the system and taking off, that it could just simply be nemecysts. And then when the NEMs are stinging and killing the coral, that flesh is going in and clouding the water. And there's no way any of us can test for that.
And you can't see it either.
And there's no way to see it.
It's just a little bit of a cloud.
So being an SPS keeper, I had an event where my alkalinity swung, and I lost one coral, and it literally killed 5 corals in a row just because of flow. And people say, well, allelopathy. Well, that's just that the nemesis,
invisible chemical warfare.
Invisible warfare and the invisible toxins.
And so I threw away a lot of that Monty. And Dwayne was like, wow, you're just chunking it. I said, you know what the worst part is? I could probably send you guys some pieces of the stuff that doesn't look good, and it goes in your tank, and it could just thrive and turn deep purple. Like, holy crap, where'd you get that? Like, Mila's Reef, can you believe it?
Yeah.
And they might be happy, but I would hate to send you something that looks so iffy, and you get it, and you're just like, oh, that is garbage. Why would you send me this?
Well, even
I'm
worst
being
case
too picky.
scenario, it actually has a bacterial infection.
Yeah,
And then
I
it's,
wouldn't want that either.
And then it's passing that along too.
Yeah, I mean,
so.
we're really looking at everything,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's crazy that 2 different ICP companies came back and they both said everything's great except for your nitrate. That's the only thing
I can
they
vouch
found.
for that. He sent the results to me, and
I
I looked at it. I'm like, yeah, everything's spot on.
He was
There's
so.
nothing.
I mean, it was so funny because he looked at it and his response was beautiful because the ICP I did was with Triton, and they want you to use like their 4 or 6 bottles of stuff.
Yeah.
And the instructions are very specific. They say you need, and here's what I mean. This is I'm doing it from memory, but let's just humor me. It was like, please add 12 milliliters of A for 1 day, and then add 3 milliliters of this for 1 day, and then add 7 milliliters of this for 2 days. And Dwayne says, so they're telling you to do a water change? And I was like, yeah, exactly. Because if I bought all the bottles, and let's say they're 500 milliliters each, and I needed 8 milliliters, I'd have 492 milliliters left I'll never need again, which a water change could replenish.
Yeah.
Because salt water has a lot of stuff in it besides salt. And so, yeah, he was right. You do a water change and you'll correct the minor thing.
Yeah.
But the one thing that made me laugh, and I mean laugh, like sad clown laugh, right? Like, was that when I sent in the NDOC test to Triton, that is their new kit that came out probably a year and a half ago that's made for people with nitrate and phosphate probably. It's their ultra low stuff. And that one didn't say, please dose 5 milliliters. It said, please call us. We need to help you. And I just died. I kind of died inside a little bit because I was like, it's so bad they won't even type the solution. They're like, call us.
Yeah. We need to sell you a lot of stuff.
So anyway, we're doing old school. We're changing water. We're siphoning sand. We're removing biomass. We're getting rid of a lot of dead skeleton. And back to the original question that I spent 9 minutes avoiding. I haven't changed the calcium reactor yet, but I definitely will be watching closely and seeing what I do because you're right. I have to adjust it.
Absolutely have to turn it down.
I might have to change the melt point higher so it's not putting in as much.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if it's not near 10.5 by the end of today.
All right. So Eric, he just got in here and he just joined and he sees this and he says, holy crap. You did not see the 5-minute warning video at the beginning of the stream that, I had the camera down here and I'm looking right at it like, guys, be ready. Here it comes. Here it comes. So I'm sorry, Eric, that you had to come in and just walk into the carnage. Yeah, it is holy crap. You're right.
Yeah, we definitely went to work. That's for sure.
See. All right, let's see what else we got here in the chat. Naziri says, I noticed most of your fish are on the right side of the tank. Why do you think that is? Well, 11 fish live in the anemone. And then you've got some pajama cardinals. And we've rearranged so much that their homes, their habitats have been taken away or exposed, where it used to be a crevice and now it's like a wide open cave.
Yeah.
And so they are actually trying to figure out what they're doing. Also, I always put the food in on this end of the tank.
Yeah.
Where when I used to use the auto feeder on that end and put water in, the fish would all go here, but they still migrated to this end of the tank. Probably for a number of reasons, like things are soft to swim in, or whatever.
Well, and then someone else had mentioned Spock having swim room.
Yeah.
This was so engrossed. There was a cave to hide in. This was also very well full. This is big U-shape. The fish are down here a little more. That's the first thing I noticed was, the 2 pajamas that we couldn't find last night, and 2 skunks and the wrasse and the copper bands hanging down. So lack of swim room. There's always just been more room near the surface in that end of the tank as well. So
this is the bomby.
Yeah.
And that's where fish hang out.
Yeah.
That's why it's the bomby.
So
quick answer. Good job. Let's see.
So maybe they will start hanging out here more. Until all the staghorns start growing, and then Spock has to start zigzagging through the obstacle course.
Terry, thank you for becoming a member. I love that. So that was nice of you. There was a small group of you. It's about 20 people have become members so far of the channel. So and by the way, when we did that live stream last night, in case you're like, oh my God, I missed it, we literally just turned on the camera and put a disclaimer that said, we're not reading the chat and we're not talking to you necessarily, but we may from time to time because we had to work and we were arms deep in the tank. And a lot of the video, Dwayne's arms in the tank, and I'm just running around handing him things. You know,
I was really sad because I
teamwork.
got my tank top dirty doing sheetrock work, so I had to wear a t-shirt, and I do not like wet armpits. I always, people when I deliver coral to the stores tease me about wearing a tank top, and that's because that's just how I prefer to work on fish tanks.
Yeah. Steve Min says, what's with a Swiss t-shirt? Okay, so I got this shirt in Switzerland years ago. It actually says on the front, save milk, drink beer. And I'm 50% Swiss. And so I love it. I only wear it occasionally. I don't wear it often on YouTube because of green screen. Otherwise, I'm a floating head. But I knew with the tank and the colors, like, I can get away with green today. So I wore it, and I like it. And not every shirt I wear is always going to be reef related. Sometimes I wear something that has nothing on it at all, and I feel kind of weird. And actually, sometimes I feel a little relieved. It's not another promotion.
Don't have to come up with something original every week. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of nice. But yeah, no. So I wore it today. I was like, yeah, I'm going to wear it. I actually love this shirt. And we did drink beer last night.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, I like this comment. Love your new setup. Can't wait till it grows in. Amazing. See, that's awesome.
Yeah, supportive group there on your behalf.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised. I really expected a lot of hate in the chat
for them all to
today.
be hating on me going, you need to quit flying Dwayne down.
What were you thinking? That guy's a hack. Literally. Actually,
He's a coral butcher.
I really was going to put on the screen under your shirt, you know, like right here on the words, it's going to say, it's going to say Hurricane Dwayne.
AKA Coral Butcher.
I think Hurricane's a pretty good descriptor. You come through and it's all different. But yeah.
I can wreck a reef.
So let's see. Todd says, tank looks amazing. Good job on pruning all the overgrowth, guys.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Some of those corals will look very different in these LEDs. Yeah, I'm sure they will. And we'll just see what happens. Okay, Alex, do not start this whole thing about LEDs versus metal halides again. I have switched. Get over it. If you want metal halides in your tank, I have 3 pendants. I'll sell them.
Which is funny. I've been, like I said,
you've been under LEDs for a decade.
4th generation LED.
Yeah.
So.
And I've had LEDs on all my other tanks this whole time. I was holding out for stubbornness, not because I thought my corals will never live under it. Tons of reef tanks are under LEDs. Not every tank is perfect.
Yeah.
Mine has got nitrate. His doesn't have anything apparently, but whatever. He can't keep salt water in the tank. Even with all his stuff.
Well, you just pour straight salt in it. It keeps your nitrate down. Trust me.
Just take a bag, lower it in there, and slice it open.
Don't do that.
Crazy. Andrea wants me to save my big piece of that for her. Yeah, we need to get you a piece.
It's right there being stung by the tongue coral.
Oh, yeah. That was actually, well, it was under. And it's actually white on one side.
It's rolling around a little bit.
Yeah, that was the one I was, but we've got others, so we'll get you. I want to get you a piece, Andrea. You've been talking about that thing for like 3 years. So, Alex says, have you ever had emerald crabs? I have, yes. I put some in this tank a long time ago, but, you know, they're gone. And Akatonia says, your tank looks super fantastic. Nice overhaul, guys.
Alex posted a very good question right there.
This one?
Yes.
When you use muriatic acid to kill the pests and sterilize a rock, you need to leave it acting on the rock overnight.
No, it would absolutely dissolve the rock, and you'd have a slurry of lime in the bottom of the bucket.
Yeah, you'd have no rock.
It's about a 15 minute to half-hour process at best, and you're just trying to strip the skin. The muriatic acid, believe it or not, doesn't kill all the algae, and it won't kill a lot of pests, like the vermetid snails and stuff.
And the Mahanos. The Mahanos become a bubble, and they just wait.
Yeah.
And then they open later and inhale some clean water.
And vermetid snails actually can do the same thing. They will just retract into their shell and close their door.
Yeah.
And unless you melted it for 2 or 3 hours and dissolve through there.
Yeah.
But you start, I mean, with live rock is scarce, it's valuable. You pay for it by the pound.
Yeah.
I don't want to dissolve half a pound away of a 10-pound rock.
Yeah,
so,
no, you literally want to put it in there long enough to bubble.
Yeah.
And then remove it probably in 10 minutes to get that outer layer.
Yeah, just to break the coralline algae
remove
down.
some algae or whatever.
And the bleach is what kills all the pests.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What happened to the coral graveyard? Okay, so Dwayne's working on the front of the tank. I'm working on the back. And at one point, and he's just ignoring me. You know, he's working, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, wait, what? Oh my God, you really went at it. I cleaned out the graveyard. I pulled out almost everything. And he's like, man, you just meant that. And I was like, yep. And I'll tell you, there was another, I gotta get in the camera. There was another chalice this big that was completely on the sand and up the rock and under Monty and under Bird's Nest and I don't know what else was under, but, and I tried to lift it because I was like, oh, I can't wait to lift this out and take a picture because it's such a large piece and it had like all these rainbow colors because it had some light and some shade, so it was really uneven. And then a piece broke. I was like, dang it! But we still got I'd say 80% is one piece.
Yeah.
And I think we got a shot or a video of that piece. And that is one of the ones that's going in the tank somehow, somewhere. There's 2 or 3 giant chalices that you just don't know are that big. You're just like, it's a chalice. And you see it from the angle, and you're like, oh, the coloration's pretty. But then when you hold it in your hand, you're like, that's unbelievable what you've got there. So that's that. You know, the area's cleaned out, and now we started a vacuum last night, but we were tired. I'd like to do more vacuuming back there because that is an area that has never been sanded and vacuumed in 8 years.
Yeah.
We did a little bit last night, and even when he finished, you could see like the holes where the tube had gone in, and there was like a layer of silt or detritus. Like, hey, you didn't get it all. Yeah. So it's okay. You know, I'm going to do some more, and then I also, and I'll probably do it after you're gone, deal with the refugium. I need to pull out a lot of macroalgae because one theory that was promoted or posited to me recently was that because I'm not pulling out the macroalgae enough, while the top is green and lush and beautiful, what's underneath has been dying and melting and releasing possibly the nitrate back in the system, and it's why the nitrate's never gone away, possibly.
Yeah, it's not doing its job as a
because I have a skimmer and a turf scrubber and macroalgae. You'd think I'd have nothing.
Yeah,
so
that's for sure.
So we blame the sand bed and we blame the plants and we, anyway, hopefully one day I'll finally say, aha, I figured out the 3 things that were causing this problem, and now I can move forward. All right. And so Adam says, where is the shadow caster? Is it behind Dwayne? There are like 10 pieces or 6 pieces glued to that rock, so it's sort of like a porcupine. Yep. And actually, I'll zoom in for you guys on that
There's
one.
6 of them.
6? Let me do that. You can scooch to my spot.
6 mini colonies.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not much there.
You say not much, but
it's
you need to remember that's
a few little
that's
sticks.
larger than what most people can buy in the store. 6 times.
They're so small. God. I mean, in a perfect world, I'm trying to adjust this. That's why it's moving so much. Spock, move your big body. All right. In a perfect world, I would have moved that entire 2-foot colony to the left and just had this really cool, wide open acro with fish swimming in and out of it or whatever, and then all the newer stuff, but still have some big stuff in here. But that's not the route. So that's the shadow caster.
There were some nems into the inner skeleton, and it was pretty well encrusted. I got some larger pieces apart, but it never would have came out of the tank in one piece.
Yeah. All right.
Good.
Oh, let me hit the focus button. Okay. Let's see what else we got.
Adam says it looks like a brand new tank. Yeah, we both agree with that.
Yeah, it does. Spock looks happy to have more room.
Yep.
That Pavono looks really healthy.
Rich granulosa.
Adam says, you guys did a great job. Did the granulosa grow into the LEDs? Yes. The new one's been sitting in the back of my tank for 2 years.
And the only light it had was XHOs.
Yeah, and it was under a Monty. It was crazy. When I pulled it out, I really thought it was going to just be like some leading edge alive and everything else dead, and it was not. It was doing very well. Is the fungia on the left side still attached to the rock? Yes. When the fungias are done, they let go and blow around somewhere. Let's see. Lucas says, there's a lot here.
Yeah.
I have a Milka coral for 2 years. It was growing like crazy, but in the last half of the year, it's not growing. Alkalinity is 8 to 8.6, calcium around 420, magnesium 1500, phosphate is in range, nitrate. Maybe flow. I mean, everything else sounds perfect, so it could be flow, or maybe you have some fish nipping at it. but hopefully it'll pick up speed again. One thing that you like to say is if a coral's not growing, to frag it, and it'll encourage growth.
In certain situations.
But the milk
Not
is
every
hard to cut.
situation. The milka is one of the most dense corals we keep in the hobby.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to cut.
Alex says, do you still have the XHOs on with the sky right now? Right now, during the stream, yes. I turn on the skies into a very yellow spectrum, and I bump in a little bit of blue, and that's what looks right on the live stream. But in real life, every day, no. I'm running the skies only. Can you point out some of the sponges? Well, they're in the rockwork, but they're on top. I mean, even under that Slimer blur, it's pure yellow sponge. And there's a whole bunch. I'll zoom in for you so you can see it. And there's white sponge. There's a whole, and I actually filmed some really nice pieces.
Come right back into where the fungias are, and
Okay.
there's some of that red sponge up under there
All right,
too.
let me go there.
If you can get in there close enough to it. See, there's
So you can see yellow. Yeah, you can see
and
some
then
red.
up here to the left. And there you go. Right in there. There's that yellow sponge. And then up under the shadow, closer to the Monopora, where the ridge is, there's some red growing up under there. It doesn't show up real well on camera from the shadowing, but
And then I know there's some white sponge.
more. I just saw some orange
Maybe
in
back
there.
Yeah. And like I said, right here,
Yeah.
under that's actually all yellow sponge right there. I've been growing yellow sponge for many years. I have white sponge. I can see yellow sponge even to the right there.
Yeah, and ultimately after a reset like this, that yellow sponge on the ridge will end up dying.
Yeah.
It'll be a slow process. It won't nuke the tank or anything.
Right. It'll just.
But it doesn't like that much light. It's far too intense light for most of the sponge up there.
What else we got? We got to wrap this up. We've been going almost 2 hours.
Yeah. That's surprising.
Alex says, what were your observations of any differences when you went from using VHOs against XHOs? I ran the VHOs for a decade. I owned the XHOs in the box for 6 months and wouldn't install them because I loved my VHOs. And Tulio said, install them, you'll love them. Like, I don't know. So finally I just installed them. And I was like, oh my God, they're so much better.
Yeah.
They have way more punch than the VHOs ever did. And my tank glowed so much better, and I really loved having them as my supplementals.
I used them alongside of my metal halide from 2005 till 2010, at which point I broke the 210 down due to finances. And a year later, I set up with my built LED system.
Yeah, the ones you made yourself.
I didn't notice any slower growth.
Yeah.
You hear people say that all the time. Oh, they're going to grow slower.
Nope.
I disagree.
No, I ran into nothing at all. It just made everything better.
The difference over my tank was that I save a lot of electricity, and I don't have to replace VHOs annually.
Max says, what is your secret to keeping a Nassau tang alive? I've had very bad luck with 3 of them. Well, they need lots of swimming space. It needs to be a big tank. You need to keep your hands out of the water. Don't touch your fish. I know people do that. I don't. I don't pet fish. Even if they come to me, I don't want to do it. I feed nori. I feed frozen. I haven't been feeding as much nori because of the nitrate issue, which I know it sounds kind of weird because the fish still need to be healthy, but I'm just worried about the water, and it's like that's one more issue. But I've had her since 2004.
Yeah.
And she's got a problem with her eye. She scuffed it on something a long time ago, and that scuff has turned into pretty much a loss of vision from that one side of her body. And I had a vet come out to see her, and she said, this is a very healthy fish.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate about her eye.
Yeah.
And, but, I mean, other than that, there was nothing to say or do. And I remember the vet, she was so funny. She says, I would give this fish a solid 5. I was like, a 5 out of what? And she says, out of 10. I was like, oh, okay. And she goes, no, 5 is good. She goes, 0 is starving, 10 is fat, 5 is perfect. She goes, this is a very healthy fish. She's a solid 5. And I was
Perfect.
like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and if I could throw something in there, I would say there's a lot of gray areas, and the question is, it could be your source. Are they dying suddenly as soon as you brought it home, or is it a year later, some strange mystery death? It's hard to say. A lot of it's just source, and a wide variety of food and lack of stress helps. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and look for stray electricity. If you keep losing tangs, maybe you have some weird HLLE thing going on.
Yeah.
Jamie says, get the red dragon.
Yeah.
Jay says, I'm actually getting ready to do a bit of fragging overhaul. Any tips you picked up that might be useful? Well, go in with the attitude that you're going to hate it. I think that helps a lot because otherwise you're so worried about what you're about to do and you have all these guilts and feelings, and you really do, because you're like, I grew this, it's alive, and now we're squishing it with bone cutters and we're dropping it.
There's several ways to approach fragging. Since I grow, and you can do a bonsai pruning in your tank, or which is what most of us do. Is a couple corals are growing in together, you have to get in and intervene. Hopefully you don't break the colony loose from the rock work.
Yeah, that's the worst. You're trying to snip a piece
yeah,
and the whole darn thing comes loose.
exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can take the whole colony out, make some frags that you know you're going to sell, that you have somewhere you can get rid of them and offload them, and then pick the prettiest, biggest piece that looks most natural and plant it back.
Yes, that's his big trick.
And that's what I typically do.
And one of the things I like to do more than he does, I really like to use the saw. I really prefer to push things through a spinning diamond-coated blade versus cutting, because it seems invariably every time I cut, I, like you said, pull the whole colony off the rock, or I break it way beyond what I wanted to snip off.
Or like I did last night, I was trying to cut a ½ inch off so I could get a better angled plant, and the 3 inches of the tip blew off in the other direction because there's just so much force of that bone cracking that it can end badly.
Lisa said the Sunset Monty is beautiful, but the true colors do not show up on this live stream. You're right, but there's a piece of it somewhere, I don't know where you put it, that was on its own rock. It's actually the most beautiful piece of sunset. It was directly under the lights all this time.
Yeah.
And this here is garbage because it was, move your arm.
Well, it's not garbage.
It was under all shade. It had no light, none. And the little bit that was kind of nice came off while we were trimming. Yeah. So, but the nice nugget I have, and I say nugget, it's about that across, it's like a full rock of sunset. It'll be somewhere in the tank, maybe in the back.
This will still come back.
This will come back because now it's getting light.
Yeah.
So that'll turn into something. Let's see. Michael says, do you have a par meter? Do you know what your numbers are? I do, and not by heart. But I think my numbers somewhere ranged about 400 to about 200 on the sand. So, that's
and that's
ballpark.
Roughly what mine are. Mine range from 500 to 200.
And that's because I run at less intensity.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't know. You're here. You might say, maybe it's time to go from 60% to 70% and just crank it up a little bit more.
If it wasn't for the Sabay looking like it was lacking color and shocking it even more, I would say, crank them up to 80%. Why not?
I think I'll just focus on the nitrate.
Of course, it's not my tank. Why not?
Yeah. Perplexed, I love that name, said, how do I get one of your anemones? Let me put this on the screen for you if I can find it. I can't see it in my old eyes. It's in here somewhere.
Oh, you're not that old.
It's just, this is such a tiny screen. Yes. I need this to be bigger. Whew. There it is. That looks right. If you will send me an email to that email address, sales@milasreef.com, I will reply to you. And I will send you a brief little intro email that just basically asks what I need to know. And then I can put you on my list. And I didn't ship anything out last week, but I probably will ship some livestock next week. It looks like we're getting a slight break in the weather here. We're going to be just around 80, 82 instead of 100. And so I can still squeak out a few more boxes. But I am a little concerned to where you live, what the temperature is. But I ship overnight. So, it goes FedEx. I drop it off at 6 o'clock. It goes into an air-conditioned building for like 5 minutes. Then it goes into a hot truck that goes to a hot distribution center that then goes, God knows where it goes, and then eventually gets to your town and should arrive between 9 and 12, hopefully, that morning before the heat of the day. That's the ideal goal. But, once it's in FedEx hands, there's nothing I can do. And I've been packing these little boxes with an anemone, and I can never say that word, and a mystery frag from the tank. So that's been, and I've been doing those for $150.
A lot of mystery frags right now.
Yeah. Yeah, there might be 2 in the box now instead of 1. People are like, oh, I should have waited. But I'm a little worried about shipping in this heat. I really don't like it. Let's see, what else we got? Tammy says, hey, Dwayne.
Hello, everybody.
You're saying hello, finally.
I'm not a very good YouTuber. I'm calling them people. You people.
Chad says, I majorly rearranged my tank to remove a fish. My clownfish now chases me down and bites. Aside from getting rid of it, is there any other strategy to stop them from doing this?
Turn around and flick them. Who's the alpha predator?
Yeah, I try to flick them too. I try to thump them on the nose and teach them a lesson. But they're so fast and so
it's
agile.
I've had 2 pairs of maroon clowns.
Mm-hmm. They're mean.
And they're pretty docile. I find that when I have an anemone, then my clowns get far more protective and aggressive. So therefore, I don't keep nems in my display tank.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's work. You can train them. I mean, they will still harass you, but they are far less aggressive when they get flicked on the nose a few times.
I saw someone just say...
With 11 of them in a display tank, it might be tough. That's why Mark hasn't been able to train his.
I saw someone say they can't wait to see the tank under better lighting. I'm just going to hit them with a bunch of blue and teach them a lesson.
There you go.
Okay, there you guys go. See, perfect. There you go. That's amazing, right? Whoa, that's how we should live stream.
You need an orange filter. And then,
you can't see anything. It's perfect.
You can put an orange filter, and Mark
and then we'll be orange.
Like Oompa Loompas. It'll be fine.
I know. This is why I don't do the blue guys. I mean, it's pointless. You're like, oh, there's something happening.
Yes, this red chalice looks pretty good.
Let me look in there. It's so bad. It's so bad. Oh, that's why I don't do this to you guys. It's pointless. Seriously. Just go to the streaming profile and just have a nice looking tank that you can actually see what's happening. Show me the blues!
Yeah. That's kind of
John says, that anemone is a true showstopper. Fantastic.
It is.
I really do like it. And it's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's probably close to 24 inches across if it were to lay out. You know, I like that it stays in vase shape.
I always tend to forget that it fluffs up. So the last couple times I've been down, I try to plant corals. Like the Anacroporus slime ball I planted last night. He's like, really, Dwayne? You don't expect that the anemone's going to fluff up when it's happy and kill that? And I... oh, yeah, I forgot. Well, it'll kill only the first half.
Yeah. Darren, I did all the measurements a while back and shared them, I don't know, in a video? I might have shared them in a video. I shared them in the Neptune group as well. The par between 200 at the sand to 400 above, possibly more. Right at the surface, probably 500 or more because it's right where the water's rolling over the sensor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a spot where you put corals anyway. And they're dialed into that exact par right now. If I wanted more par, I would just increase the intensity. Right now, the peak of the day, my lights are running at 60%. So I've got 40% more to play with at some point. Luca, he asked about this earlier. I'm just going to readdress it. So he said that his milk is just not doing well. It's in high flow with a lot of light. It's been in the same spot for 2 years. Should I start fragging it? I use T5s for lights.
Well, I'm assuming the lights are fresh.
Maybe the T5s are old.
Yeah, if they, or a certain spectrum on the T5 is causing it anxiety,
to slow down
some sort. Otherwise, just an ICP test and test. That's what I always do when I start questioning things. Yeah,
and here's another thing that I think a lot of us do without intention. We look at our tank and we see the thing that's a problem. And we dwell and we freak out about it when everything else is totally fine.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing to keep in mind that we don't do enough.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'll be super upset that the Shadowcaster, or like the Drew Zacro that died, right? Yeah. I watched it go up in smoke, and of course I worried about the whole reef, but I was like, why is that coral going up in smoke? And then I had to keep reminding myself, well, all of this is alive, and that's healthy, and those fish are okay, and that's okay.
Yeah. And
it can be a little scary, and it's so easy to get fixated on the absolute negative. You miss out on all the good. If that one coral's not doing well, my go-to, if possible, would either be dip it, and just in case there's something on it, or put it down on the sand where it's getting way less light for a while, and just kind of leave it alone and keep your hands off of it, and make sure the water's stable.
I have to tell a lot of new reef keepers that is, I have 100 species of SPS in my display tank. It's like having a crowd of people in a room. Some people are going to have a cold. You're never going to have everyone happy at the same time. Some people are too hot. Some people are too cold. Some people are sick.
Yeah.
You can't. No one's always going to be happy. It's the same thing with your reef tank. Some corals they go through moods.
I'm just thinking to myself here as you're talking and you're saying, you're sharing your knowledge. And I was just realizing the both of us, have over 40 years saltwater experience. I mean, you got freshwater stuff, but
Yeah.
as you know, that doesn't count. And we both ran saltwater clubs. I mean, we have a ton of stories. We could be doing these streams for forever and always have new things to talk about. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. This is from Adrian. I lost all my fish 7 weeks ago. I did water changes for the 7 weeks with no fish in the tank. Added 2 clowns again, and they started suffering. Any advice? Water tests are good, and equipment is good. Well, it sounds like you have a fish disease in your tank, and you need to go to humble.fish. That's the website. Humble, period, fish, enter. And he talks about all the fish disease and how long to leave your tank fishless and what kind of medications you should use and quarantine for any new fish. Because if you have something like velvet or ick or something like that in the system and you lose all your fish and you put more fish in even after 7 weeks, they could get reinfected and it continues the cycle.
Yeah, I can see now that the tough questions like this got to be tough for you because there's so many variables. I'm thinking, well, stray voltage, did you do an ICP test?
Well, to lose all your fish tells me velvet.
Yeah.
That's my guess, because you lose them, and they probably lost
quick.
them fast.
Yeah, it's quick.
It could even been the tank overheated. Yeah. Because a lot of people are like, it's summer, but I don't want to plug in my AC unit yet. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Turn on the AC, people. So the tanks warm up, and then they come home, and the tank's the right temperature, but it cooked during the day and took away the oxygen.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray areas.
There's a lot of things that can happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, go to humble.fish and see if he has a whole forum, and he'll answer your every question. Because I am not a fish disease person. I've been telling you guys that forever. I really need to wear a hat that says not a fish disease person.
Yeah, and then I don't know if I've seen that name on the Club Melib's Reef Facebook group too. So that's a great resource as well.
Yeah, he's amazing.
You can get into more detail about the situation and the setup, what happened, what your follow-up was, what your parameters being good, tests are good. Well, what tests?
Yeah.
So
and what equipment?
Yeah, there's a lot.
But
to
this
it.
is a fish problem. This sounds like fish disease.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like anything else to me.
So.
Ed says, are there any new products in the shop? Not yet. They're here, but they're not in the shop. So that's on my hit list of probably adding, 20 to 40 things to my website whenever I have a few minutes. So we'll see. But if you're ever looking for something and you want to email me and say, do you have it in stock, I can always let you know. Getting near the bottom. See the slider? Oh. It's a good sign, right?
Yeah. People are bored with us, huh?
Yes. All 216 people are bored with us. The NASA question that came up before said they all died. The first one died within 3 days. The second one died in 10 days. The third one died in 3 weeks. They all ate fine. There was no aggression from other fish. Where are you buying these fish? Number one. Especially if you're, and I'm not accusing you of anything, okay? Some people have the hookup, and they have a transshipper, and that guy will get it to you for nothing versus going to the fish store and paying $200-300 for your fish. Yeah. And there's a chance it's not handling the shipping. There's a chance it's some kind of a disease. It's a chance it's just not a good seller. I mean, there was a fish store that I kept buying fish from, and nothing lived. And I was like, I'm going to stop buying fish there. I'll buy them somewhere else, and I had better success. Yeah. And, I have no idea what was different, but I quit throwing money away and put it where it was working for me in my favor. But the NASA, I'm trying to think of specifics NASOs need. They need a lot of air, and they need a lot of swimming space. They do need food, and they get moody, and they can even go on strike and not eat. But you could be even dealing with tanks that have some internal parasite. Or you could be dealing with someone that's catching tangs with cyanide. Yeah. And the cyanide hurts their internal organs, but the fish looks completely normal and is eating and still drops dead. Well, that first one that died in 3 days and the second one in 10 days, that sounds like cyanide almost. Yeah. The 3 week one, I don't know. Maybe that was just bad luck.
Well, like you were saying, shipping. NASOs or NASOs, whatever you call them, in my experience, don't typically come in as tiny juveniles. No. So if they're a 4 to 6 inch fish, and they're not being shipped right, then they did have some oxygen deprivation, and they are going to be sick and struggling to begin with. Even if they are eating, maybe then there's just no hope. It's sad.
Yeah. Chad says he's a new member. Awesome! Thank you for joining. That's awesome. Jay says, do you have any easy video splitter and joiner apps for the phone? Well, iMovie does a ton of that, and I think it's free these days. I remember paying for iMovie in the past. I love Final Cut Pro, but it's way more complicated.
Yeah.
There's other apps out there too. There's one actually that just came out. I learned about it watching someone else's channel that they do on the iPad. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so buying that software because I'm getting the new iPad in 3 days, and I've been waiting for it for 3 years, and I finally pulled the trigger, and I'm so excited. And I'm hoping that I will be able to like airdrop from my phone to the iPad, edit on the spot, release to YouTube immediately, and not have that thing where I come home, I copy it to my hard drive, and it never gets released. So I'm really hoping to improve my flow, my workflow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the TJ's Reef video you released about a month ago. Did you put a disclaimer in there that you recorded that 2 years ago?
I probably said it in the narration, yeah.
Okay.
Because I was releasing stuff that was old that never got released.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, exactly your
beautiful
point.
tanks. Just when do I have time?
Yeah.
And people have been saying, "Well, are you okay?" And they understand I've gone through a lot this year, and I mean, everyone's going through a lot, and I'm trying to be realistic.
Yeah.
But I've every day has so much to do in it, and I'm still not accomplishing everything I need to accomplish. And so to add video editing on top is a real challenge.
Yeah.
And I have to basically say I'm going to give up the next six to 8 hours to edit a video, and fix all the sound levels and narrate over it and correct the colors and there's a whole ordeal. It's not, I don't know how some of these guys do it. Obviously the big names on YouTube have people editing for them. They shoot and those other people are assisting in some level.
Exactly the reason why I don't make videos. It's a matter of time. I just don't have the free time.
Yeah.
And as much as anything, I don't want to compete with my friend here.
You're already famous, I told you. Okay, Jay says, I want to put up videos about fragging, but I don't know much about the videos. Basically what you want to do, you want to film what you're doing, and it could be a lot of choices. It could be time-lapse. It could be direct filming. The trick is getting the thing on a tripod where it's facing you and getting the subject as best you can. And then you may have to shoot from different angles. You may have to shoot the same thing several times until you get that sweet one. And then I really love to narrate over rather than talk during. Because when you talk during, anything you're working on to video for sharing will make the entire job 3 to 5 times longer. For me to install lights over the tank, the skies, they could have gone up in about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But to film the process made it 6 hours.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things you want to showcase before you bolt it into place, or that you want to demonstrate now that it's up, and it becomes this whole thing. So for me, anytime a video is edited, I hope to try to make it educational and to answer some questions. So you're not just. I've watched other videos where I learned nothing. It was pretty. I didn't learn anything, and I was kind of frustrated like there was no answers. Why wouldn't you tell me these things? Yeah. So that's what I would recommend with your video. And I really do recommend a microphone or a very quiet room. Yeah. And, like I said, Final Cut Pro lets me remove the hum of pumps in the background. It lets me adjust all kinds of things, where iMovie, not so much ability.
Well, one thing I've learned, too, is a tripod. You have to have just the basics just to get started.
Good lighting, tripod, microphone.
Yeah.
And a little bit of luck.
And patience. Definitely patience.
But, for the first few years, I did everything in iMovie.
Yeah.
So, that definitely will do a lot. And they've made it better than when I used it. So, it could be very simple now.
Yeah, I think there's actually a subscription you can get an upgraded mode now for it.
It says, John's a new member. I wonder if this is automated. It might just be coming in. That's kind of cool. Because I just don't think people are doing this themselves. No. New member! Awesome, John. Thank you so much. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, we'll skip past that. Oh, he's using a Microsoft editor. Jay, if you're doing PC, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I will tell you, I did used to use Movie Maker back in the day when I was doing some stuff on the PC. But, he's running Windows 7. Dude, okay, you need to go buy yourself an iPad. I am not even sponsored by Apple, not even a little bit. I just give them all my money. But yeah, the YouTube channel has some editors too, but I think it'd be really hard to upload stuff and turn into a video online and release. I think that would be a nightmare.
Look what Terry Davis says down below.
Oh, hang on. Yeah. Terry says, come on, guys. Mark and Dwayne, weekly podcast, drinking and stories from the box of water. Nice. Chad, you signed up as a Spock level. That's awesome. Thank you so much. That was really nice of you. I appreciate that you guys put enough faith into me to actually sign up. I really drug my feet on turning that on, and that thing's been around since 2018.
Wow.
And I was like, no, I don't need that. That's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't want to offend people. It's so easy to do something and people get riled up.
Yeah.
But so thank you guys. I really do appreciate those that choose to join, and those that don't, it's fine. Don't think I don't love you less now or something. It's all the same. It just I have a new group I can actually do something specific with because they want it. Okay, Lucas says he's going to do an ICP test and see if he can figure out what's going on with that milk.
Good start.
Yeah. Let's see.
Having said that, I use the Apex for everything. I keep reminding Mark that my fish tank tells me to do it. And my controller, I use the calendar function, and I told myself I need to do ICP tests. I'd like to do them twice a year just to kind of see where I'm sitting as a baseline, just to make sure that the water changes are doing their job, keeping up. And sometimes I get lax on water changes as well, so I'm not doing 20% a month every month. But that just reminds me I should add it to my calendar so that my fish tank can tell me what to do even more. So
yeah, he has a whole reminder calendar going on. And if you're using Reef Trace, there's a whole section in there, notes with reminders. And there'll be notifications on your phone when you get out.
Just helps keep you routine. Clean your power heads, calibrate your probes, double check your heaters, make sure that they're not getting old. Just simple things.
So we're back to the NASO. He says, last question. I figured the supplier might be the problem. The fish store is my supplier. Okay, so he's buying from a store.
Yeah.
And they buy them from wholesale. Well, that's where they all get them.
Yeah.
I'm moving in 5 weeks, and I will try NASO on the new big tank. Yeah, I mean, you can. Maybe you'll get a win. Yeah. Nice. Darren got the new MacBook Pro with the M1 chip. My iPad Pro is going to have the M1 chip. I am excited. Nice. I literally can't wait. I actually feel like it's going to help in so many areas of what I do. I'm just looking for the last couple questions so we can wrap this up. I swear. Okay, maybe Dwayne can answer this. I don't know. I reconnected my Apex Trident and ran it for a week, and then I calibrated it. It still doesn't test correctly because I retest with Hannah, alkalcin, and magnesium. What can I do? Okay, so where are you going to start with that one?
I don't get into these discussions.
Put your filter on. I know what you're thinking.
All the time. And the percentage of error on Hannah is far greater than the percentage of error on Trident. Mm-hmm. The Trident is more accurate. Regardless of what you use, pick with a method and stick with it. Even if the Trident is wrong by half a DKH, it doesn't matter. What matters is your alkalinity stays rock solid at 9.5 for 5 years.
Yeah, whatever that number is.
All that matters is what your magic number that you've decided. Stick with it. Yeah. Stick with the method, and don't change it. Trust me, I questioned the Trident the day I installed it too. Yeah. Jim Welsh, the inventor, was right in there as I was beta testing with it, and he, of course, smacked me down and said, "You're wrong. I'm right. I'm the scientist. This is what." And Hannah, one of the reps from Hannah, backed him up and said, "You're doing it wrong, Dwayne. Jim's right. Our products aren't as accurate as his." And I've got that straight from the manufacturer. So yeah, I trust the Trident.
Yeah. And to add to that, if you're testing and you're like verifying and you're like the Trident, let's just take a real number. Let's say the Trident says your magnesium is 1,300 and your Hannah says your magnesium is 1,500. Well, number one, do the Hannah 3 times in a row and divide by 3 and see what the number is. It may be exactly what the Trident is, okay? Yeah. That's the first thing. Yeah. The second thing is, let's say you had a Hannah and a second Hannah and you did exactly the same test. Would you get the same number on both devices or not? But like you said, okay, let's just pretend, for example, real life application, you said 9.5, I think, right? Let's say Trident says your alkalinity is 8.5 and your Hannah says 9.5 like it always says 9.5. So if it always says 8.5, you're still 9.5. See what I'm saying? Because you know that it's just your, what is that called? An offset? Yeah. You know, where you just know it's an offset, but it's always, the graph is nice and straight, you're good. Yeah. But if it's doing this and this and this and this, and it's all over the place, that's a whole other thing you got to fix, and it's not the Trident's fault.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
unless you're
so-
doing controlled dosing, which is a whole other topic. But the point is, yeah, you want to find whatever the number is that works, and you have to realize that Trident actually has a much tighter margin of error versus the Hannah is a wider one. And then there's another test kit that's even wider. I mean, it just and then for example, people always dig on API.
Yeah.
Let's say that's the widest, for example, which I don't even know. But let's say it's the worst one.
Well, it's the same thing as we get it occasionally with pH probes.
Yeah.
And I have 2 pH probes side by side with 2 different units, and I calibrated them. And they both have the same reading. And the scientists, I forget his name. They're out
Randy
of the
Holmes-Friday?
Midwest. Yeah, Randy will tell you the same thing. No two pH probes are going to read identical.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with our alkalinity testers.
Yeah.
None are going to read identical.
You could have 2 Tridents side by side and maybe
error
not
with
get the
everything.
same number.
Exactly.
I mean, it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
It's sort of like having 2 wristwatches and they don't match. You're like, why don't they match? They're both synced to the world clock, and you're just like, but they're not the exact same.
Yeah.
So you just have to figure out what you want to trust. Now, if it's giving you a wild, crazy reading, yes, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Call customer support, get some help. I want to put this on the screen in case someone was looking for an editor. Ed suggested openshot.org. So there's a nice Windows editor for video. And Mervin, thank you for becoming a new member. Oh my God, this thing is really working. That's awesome. Let's see. Okay, this person is doing a completely different situation. I use Google Home with smart switches. Google knows when they're shut off. Anyone know how to get Google to send me a notification when the power is off? Maybe that exists. I don't
think
know.
It would probably be the same thing as your Neptune Apex if you don't have a battery backup to your router.
Yeah, and to your
yeah,
Echo or whatever.
Yeah, so
I don't know. You might check and see if they have something in their FAQs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Darren says, how often would you recommend calibrating salinity and temperature probes, Dwayne?
I calibrate all my probes every 3 months. I buy my solutions in bulk, and the stuff expires. So why not just use it?
Yeah.
So again, my fish tank tells me when to do it.
Linda asks me, but I think I know your answer. My rocks are absolutely covered in vermitid snails. Can they be the cause of slow coral loss? When disturbing sand, the tank looks like it was covered with cobwebs.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So those webs that come out, they actually sting the corals. They're throwing it out there to catch food, and it lands on whatever, like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You ever think about Spider-Man, how he goes through the city and he throws those webs on every building? Are those things just dangling down all the buildings everywhere in the pole lights, and that's a piece of Spider-Man's web? Because he just disconnects and leaves it behind.
Yeah.
Does it evaporate?
No, I think
Is it vermitid web?
It slows the growth of the buildings, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely affecting those corals.
Yeah.
You're going to need to do something about them. I don't know if you want to go nuclear like this guy here and do the whole thing, but you can scrape them off, break them off. You can even fill the hole where one was with super glue gel, just literally seal the thing in, and just kind of systematically keep working your way across the reef till you get them all.
Yeah, bone shears, you can crush their skeletons, provided your rock work is strong enough, because they have a real strong shell.
Yeah.
So you can crush their shells, and that takes care of them. Richard Ross has been using dental tools to actually get in and open their shell up, and he has wrasses that go in and then pick at them and eat at them. A lot of people in the Seattle area have been saying bumblebee snails.
Mm-hmm.
Get a bunch
I've
of
heard that a
bumblebee
lot.
snails. The problem is once the bumblebee snails are out of vermetids to eat, where's their food source? What are they going to turn on, or are they just going to slowly starve to death? So it's always the case of biological warfare against something like that.
Yeah.
Is always a tough call. But a little bit of work.
All right, guys. Well, that is the end of today's live stream. Remember, today is Water Test Saturday. If your name is not Dwayne, you should test your water today. And you want to test everything, alkalinity, calcium, magnesium. I'm going to test all my water, especially after what we just did. I want to know what everything is.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you clean your protein skimmers, the neck itself, not just pour out the liquid, but get that grunge off the inside. Check your dosing pumps, because a lot of you like to use dose instead of a calcium reactor. And when you're doing that, the tubing can clog shut and nothing's coming out, even though you have plenty of solution. Double check if you have solution. Make sure your dosers are in a nice safe spot where they won't fall off and create a siphon and drain too much in. Double check your top-off container and make sure that it's topping off properly and not siphoning more water in when the pump turns off. Just basically go over your whole tank and look for flaws and fix them before you have a big problem. But essentially, we always say to test your water in sour days because water tests save lives, and that is something Caitlin came up with, and I completely agree. I will wrap this up with one quick thing. I finally heard from the medical examiner, and he ruled it natural causes, and I won't go into any further details because the family asked me not to. But there was no nefarious anything in case any weird person thought that there was. I think most people didn't, but apparently there was some guesswork out there. And so I got my answer. And it's sad. But other than that, guys, thank you for tuning in and not judging my new tank too harshly. It's going to be a new tank for a while. But we're going to put some more stuff in, do some more cleanup. Yeah. And hopefully, in the coming month or two, it'll start to actually take some shape. All right, guys. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
And thank you for becoming members. Bye.